And here we go. We have liftoff. Propulsion continues to be normal.
R68 chamber pressure looks good.
Rolling up. Roger, roll, planet.
Water towers fly! Yes!
Tango down to nominal.
Fighting downside FD off. Bring in FD off. Off. It's orange!
Oh my god! Oh my god!
Decollage.
Look at this!
Put that in the big bag,
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed.
We rise together, back to the moon and beyond.
This methane would be igniting in the flare, correct?
Yikes. You dead? Sure. We don't need any more of these.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to what will probably be another very exciting day here out of Boca Chica, Texas. My name is Adrian Bile, and we are here on NSF with what we think is the Wet Dress Rehearsal, the third attempt for the next Starship Flight Stack. And as you can see here, we already have quite some venting going on and quite some activity that we will all talk about in the next few minutes, and make sure you're all up to date of what's happening, where we are, and what to expect today. Let's start to introduce my very competent co-commentators here who will help me to explain everything that is going on here today, starting with Ryan Weber. Ryan, how you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, Adrian. You know, hopefully third time's the charm here for SpaceX. Don't really know exactly what went wrong the first two times, but clearly they sorted out whatever they needed to in about a week, and here they are again trying to go for it. And a nighttime one too. I think the last full stack nighttime testing was Booster 4 S20. I have to double check that again, but I think it's that long ago we had this again. So yeah.
It's gonna be interesting on the visuals here. Let's see what we will see over the next few hours here. Trevor, you're also with us, correct?
I am also with us. It's great to be here.
I'm looking really forward to make sure that we explain everything that's going on here. And as always, the most important thing for us here today is to answer all of your questions and make sure that we will give you as much information as we can. So make sure to tag @NASASpaceflight in chat. And if you do that, we get the questions in a handy little tool, and then we will go through them and make sure to explain what's happening today. Let's start here with you, Ryan. What is expected here? Why do we call this a wet dress rehearsal? Why are we certain it is that? What's the signing? What's the build up?
All right, so SpaceX had released. So we'll go back. So SpaceX had released out a couple of road closures, and it was kind of fun that one was at nighttime, so it was going to be kind of interesting. And then as they were doing pad checkouts the last couple of days and whatnot, we had also heard that Mary got a evacuation notice, and then we saw them set up a roadblock not only at the normal location, but all the way back at a river site, way back down Highway 4. They only set that roadblock up if they intend on loading a decent amount into the vehicle, and the same thing with an evac. They kind of need that when you load 5,000 tons of propellant onto a vehicle. It becomes a bit of a possible explosion hazard, so you want a good safety radius. So yeah, they loaded, they set all that up, and that's kind of why we're expecting a wet dress today, is because they only do that if you're going to load that much into the vehicle. So.
Oh, there we go. That's the overall playing field here. Trevor, of course, this has a bit of a history with previous wet dress rehearsals. How is your take so far on the test campaign so far, and do you think it will be successful today?
Yeah, I mean, third time's the charm, as Ryan was saying as we went in. They did have two previous attempts that they seem to have run into some pretty substantial issues, where they had to destack and actually roll booster all the way back to the production site, and then they did some work on it before rolling it out. And then Ship 28 did some testing at the suborbital launch site. So we unfortunately don't know what exactly those issues were. But I would say that I feel like they'll probably successfully get through the wet dress rehearsal today.
I really, really hope you're accurate and right with this, because I really want to see that wet dress rehearsal completed. Because of course, Ryan, after the wet dress rehearsal, what are we expecting? Like, what would be like the steps remaining until we could see a third launch?
So after this, assuming it is successful here, basically SpaceX will review the data, and if they're good with it and everything along those lines, they'll probably destack the vehicle, and just keep Ship 28 destacked for the time being until they basically get approval. The next step after this would be a license, because SpaceX won't install and arm the or install the FTS or arm it until they know they're getting a license or they have the license ready. Because that is kind of dangerous to have armed explosives sitting near the vehicles and near people. So they want to do that as late as possible. So we could probably be assuming it's successful, probably like 2 weeks until a launch, maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks, to go over the data and make sure everything's good to go.
Here we go, Trevor. Are you agreeing with that? Like overall ballpark of until we see the launch?
It's so hard to know. These tests are done for a reason. SpaceX may find issues with these vehicles, and if they do, that'll obviously delay the launch past when we may want it to be. I think it's likely that at this point the test campaign is pretty smoothly, but I think I would have said the same thing ahead of the first wet dress attempts a few weeks ago. So it's really hard to know, but I do think that within March is a very reasonable time frame.
Then let's hope it's March. I really want to see March. I don't want to, like, I know there's some people are like, oh, maybe they launch on the 1 year anniversary, and I'm like, no, I don't want to wait until like 420. that's way too long. They can try to attempt the fourth launch on 420, but please don't do the third on that day. So let's dive into a bit more details here. Ryan, there's some questions about all the venting that is going on here and like everything. Can you like try to give yours like in a bit of an overview? What are we seeing here? What's venting here? What are we seeing?
So we did have a fun development here. So the tower vent has stopped. Recently though, in the last two, they'll have it. They'll stop it and then it'll start going again. And then usually once it stops the second time is when a possible prop load might start. So we're kind of waiting for it to start back up again here. But as you can see, the OLM vent is going strong. We're still waiting for it to get in that like full waterfall mode to where they're really, really chilling down all the pipes. And then once that goes for a little while, they'll shut that off, which will then indicate prop load on the booster. As you can see, there's also a lot of clouds going around here. The LOX subcoolers look to be fully chilled down, and the methane subcoolers look to be in chill down mode as well. So we're definitely heading into things are proceeding apace, and let's hope we get prop load here soon. Maybe 20, 30 minutes or less.
Let's start to dive into questions here as people are starting really to fill up here the questions queue. Starting with a question here for you, Trevor. Why the strange time for closure? Like on a Sunday in the evening? What's going on here?
That's the question I think especially the Europeans among us want an answer to. But unfortunately, we don't know. It's probably just this is the earliest SpaceX is ready, and right, they're allowed to have a few number of these weekend testing events throughout the year. So they probably just want to get this testing done as quickly as possible. And that just happened to end up on a Sunday. And we saw that they also have additional road closures. So if something doesn't go correctly today, they have another one tomorrow and Tuesday, if I remember correctly. Although keep in mind that if there is depending on how far they get into the countdown today, if they wanted to conduct another, it is possible that they would have to wait a few days to replenish liquid oxygen and liquid methane in the GSE tanks.
There we go. Yeah, it certainly will probably depend a lot on like how far they go into the countdown, like what's the exact reason of a hold, if they would be, of course, knocking on wood here. We hope just go as smooth as possible, and they just complete everything here.
And
with go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say it's worth noting that SpaceX seems to be fine if there are some issues on these wet dress rehearsals. I remember back ahead of Launch 1 in the Booster 7 Ship 24 stack, there seemed to be a lot of venting that we had never seen before. So my guess is that was something that didn't go exactly to plan, and yet that was still the last wet dress that they completed on that full stack. So they're not going for 100% perfect, but just learning enough seems to be what they're doing with these.
There we go. Yeah, it feels like SpaceX always has these phases where you're like, oh, everything is kind of going against them sometimes. Like you have this where they scrap a lot, like with Starship, and they learn something new. And you're always like, oh, will they ever get this reliable? And I know we had this phase with, like, for example, the early hops, where everything seemed a bit unreliable, a bit more on the scrubby side. And then suddenly, like, they combine all of this knowledge they gathered during this very testing-rich campaigns, and then they're like getting to this mode where they just hit milestone after milestone. I'm really hoping that after these small tweaks to the tank farm, or like actually bigger tweaks to the tank farm, we see them really hitting their cadence again with this and just learning from all of this. Because every time they perform a test like this, they will learn a lot from it. Like
even going back to the Falcon era when they first started with subcooled propellant, they had so many scrubs, and then now we see it's quite rare that Falcon has a scrub that's not due to weather.
Yeah, I mean, it was so commonly scrubbing that it was like even in the early days referred to as Scrub X, right? Like they were quite known for scrubbing a lot, and it's so hard to imagine that with the beast that Falcon 9 has become now. And I really like the spotlights here, by the way, in the shot. Like it has like a very cinematic kind of view.
I kind of wish they had more of them, and then like all pointing up at the vehicle, kind of like those famous Saturn V shots. You know?
Oh, that would be cool.
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to so I really like combined rocket shots. So like when you see multiple rockets on the same photo. So I'm really looking forward to once we get Starship Cape activity to see like a Falcon Heavy or like I don't know, a New Glenn or a Vulcan on a pad, while Starship is also on a pad, like getting these combined shots. Or even SLS, like I think probably having a SLS vertical while also a Starship would be vertical. That would be like a prime shot, because like you get the whole Artemis program there, right?
Imagine like New Glenn vertical on 36, Falcon Heavy vertical 39A, Starship vertical 39A, SLS vertical 39B. Like that would just be insane.
I think that would break like every rocket photographer on this planet. Like I think there would be competitions of who gets like the perfect angle to really align it so you can see them all. That would be the dream picture. Like, let's be real.
I mean, Ben Cooper has been killing it just with Falcon 9s on 39A and Slick 40, of one launching behind the other or like both in shot. They've been really cool photos.
Absolutely. Ryan, I'm throwing this to you here. What's the difference between an overpressure notice and an evacuation notice? Can a static fire be performed on an evacuation notice in theory?
In theory, they could, because the overpressure notice is to let the people living nearby in Boca Chica Village that there could be an event of an overpressure, basically the vehicle exploding. So an evacuation notice could basically be the same thing. There's no reason to give out an overpressure notice if no one's going to be in the village to hear an overpressure. So, it's one of those One of those things. So they could do one or the other. That's why they don't have an overpressure notice for this, is because they're evacuated, so they don't need one.
It's kind of like the next escalation step, I would say. Like it's basically you get an overpressure notice. It's more like a warning. Hey, something could happen. And an evacuation notice is really like the next evacuation step because of the high pressure, like high prop load. It's like, okay, we don't need, like, we need to evacuate you. A warning is not enough anymore. Like it's kind of like the next step. So they wouldn't probably issue a evacuation for just a static fire, because why would they? Like, why would you do more than you have to do? That's probably not. And also, Trevor, let's hit that as well, because I saw some questions about this. What's the exact flow of a wet dress rehearsal? Will there be a static fire at the end? Like, what are we looking at? What's going to happen today on the wet dress front?
A wet dress encompasses everything that a launch would, except for ignition of engines. So there will go through the entire launch countdown from fueling, as we're seeing now, to doing TVC checks on both vehicles and whatnot, up to and not including a firing. So unfortunately, there will not be any static fires today. The next time we expect to see a fire, an engine fire on either of these vehicles, will be the first launch attempt.
There we go. Let's hope for that. I really want to see that. Let me thank some very generous people here as we have started just this coverage here right now. We already get some very generous support here, starting with Plasmic becoming a Red Team member. We have Ryan, which is probably another Ryan here, with a $5 super chat saying, is there a chance of a night launch for IFT3? So since this is a Ryan question, I'm also throwing this to Ryan. Like, what's the chance of, like, do we actually know anything about the window for Flight 3?
We don't really know what the window for Flight 3 is. My guess is it'll stay the same, where they do like a 8 a.m. launch. Because they probably still want to do the full like suborbital trek, where they then try to land in Hawaii or whatnot. There was an interesting FCC filing though, where they talked about a splashdown in the Indian Ocean. Now the way they could do that is if they performed a burn, during coast phase, and they would do that basically as a test of a deorbit burn, and then also you can test reentry one way or the other. But keeping it on a suborbital track rather than going into actual orbit means that if for some reason the deorbit burn didn't work, you're still going to re-enter one way or the other. But I think they'll still keep the same time. I don't see any reason for it to change. It'll be cool to see a night launch when they do one, because seeing 33 Raptors at night is going to be one of the coolest things ever. So I can't wait for that.
Absolutely. Also, Ryan here, after the question, also coming in with 5 Red Team memberships. Thank you for that. We have Methane Man with 5 Red Team memberships. We have Josh Zero with a $5 super chat saying, bad thoughts time 3 Starship versus 1. Oh, God. They're basically asking about Super Duper Heavy. I'm not sure. Like, I'm trying to process this. Bad thoughts time 3 Starship version 1 strapped to Starship version 2 on top of Super. I don't know.
How would you strap those together?
I have questions about this. In general, let me just add this, like, because that's a question of like combining stages or making this triple core or anything like that. These are all questions we like that are more unlikely, because it's already a challenge to keep this vehicle contained as it is. Imagine 3 super heavies, like that would probably just melt everything.
Imagine the GSE required to do that though. Like the 3 OLMs together, like how would you build that tower? Because like if you do 3 OLMs together in one tower, you need the chopsticks to be able to place it on all 3 openings in the mount. Like how would you even do that? I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't even think you could.
It would be insane. Like we would that would be crazy. But
Yes,
I mean,
SpaceX and Elon
I will never
have
say never.
SpaceX and Elon have been very vocal about how they are never going to make another vehicle like Falcon Heavy, as in just strapping 3 first stages together and having the second stage on top of that. And the reason is it's just not that efficient of a way to increase performance of a vehicle. So they've said that if they are going to, well, when they inevitably make a larger vehicle at some point, which is many, many years out, given that Starship is, I mean, Falcon Heavy is enormous, and then Starship is another level of enormous above Falcon Heavy, that they'll just make a bigger diameter vehicle as opposed to trying to strap several together.
Yeah, it's really like I think I wonder if they initially thought like, oh, it's gonna be as easy as just strapping 3 vehicles together. Like, do you think they had that misconception, Trevor, or like, what's your overall expectation? Like, when did they find out how much modification the center core needed?
I mean, Elon's even admitted that they overestimated how easy it was going to be. They thought that it was just going to be, strapped 3 together, and then originally they were going to have cross-feed between them, which would be an added level of complexity. And ultimately, they ended up going away with cross-feed, which makes sense, since for a recoverable vehicle, cross-feed makes no sense. And then they realized that, there's tons more, there's a lot more thrust going through that center core. So they need to reinforce the entire thing. So then now you need to change your tank design, you need to change your inner stage design, you need to change, the way that you load propellant to accommodate the cores. There's just so many items that change based on wanting to add 2 more cores to either side, that it was not as trivial as the SpaceX engineers thought it would be when they first started working on Falcon Heavy.
There we go. Concrete Vent, aka Grass Vent, with a super chat here saying, "Hello Adrian, do you like the OFT upgrades? The OTF upgrades? I like the orbital tank farm upgrades. I think making it more beefy, more capable. That's good, right? We like that. And also I love that now it's a concrete vent, aka Grass Vent. Like I love that addition. Like I love the evolution. There's a storyline here going on. So thank you for that. Oh, go ahead.
It's like to say they added a lot to this tank farm since the last flight. Like they've added 4 more subcoolers and 2 more pumps on the LOX side, and another pump and subcooler on the methane side. And then not only to add to that, they basically separated the subcoolers between ship and booster, and they have a added manifold for detanking. So they've significantly upgraded this tank farm for faster loading and unloading of the vehicle.
There we go. Yeah, it's gonna be quite interesting. Like that's actually, I think, one of the most interesting parts of today's countdown, right? Like seeing changes to the potential timelines and everything. Like that's very interesting here for me, and I'm looking forward to see potential changes and what was adjusted and everything. So let's wait for that. Also thanking you, Byteford, again for 5 Red Team memberships gifted. Anonymous with a space in between, also with 5 Red Team memberships. Joe Howard with 5 Red Team memberships gifted. And then Blackjack98 coming in with 10 Red Team memberships gifted. Thank you all for gifting all of these very generous memberships to the Red Team. And I hope you all enjoy the behind the scenes and preview content. So really hope you enjoy that. And also the members multi-view, which is up. And also Byteford here coming in with a $100 super chat. Thank you so much, Byteford. That's an enormous amount of money. And also saying, celebrating being home. Great that WDR waited for me. And Alon, thank you everyone for all the best wishes. And I continue these best wishes, Byteford. Glad you're home. And I hope you enjoyed today's stream. So, let's go a bit more into questions here. Yeah, that's a Trevor. So we said they need to refuel between attempts here. So Darren Vance here is asking, why do they have to wait a couple days to replenish? They recapture fuel when they detank, right?
Yeah, that's a good question. So they do recapture the vast majority of the liquid oxygen and the liquid methane. However, there's still a little bit lost during this test just from boil off in the tanks and whatnot. And that's what they need to replenish. And the boil off is substantial enough that they don't have enough spare to, if they lose from one full fueling, they lose enough where they have to refill a little bit before the next full fueling. And another problem is they have the gaseous oxygen and gaseous methane get condensated back into liquid form, or at least most of it does, as I was saying, through these recondensers, which are chilled from liquid nitrogen. So in order to chill or to condense the methane and oxygen, you need to have some nitrogen boil off. And that nitrogen boil off means you also need to resupply some nitrogen to the ground service equipment.
There we go. Ryan, what are we seeing here? What's going on here? There has been some development here, right?
So I don't know, Adrian. You think that looks like waterfall on that OLM vent for you?
It feels like, based on the tank farm and everything, like, and potentially the subcoolers here, I think we might be. I think I see the subcoolers on the methane side going.
Hey, Jay, if we can get a shot of ship's methane tank with the tower vent going the way it is, it looks like the ship's side. We might have prop load here on ship's methane tank here.
Yeah, I think so. Just to explain viewers what we're seeing here, there are subcoolers here. The subcoolers, as soon as they are coming in contact with the methane during the fuel load, they will start a rapid boil off of the nitrogen, because the nitrogen is used to cool this, and as soon as that nitrogen heats up, as it used to cool the methane, that will start rapid boil off. So that's where we'll see a lot of generation of gaseous exhaust here as they move into methane loading. And based on initial the second wet dress rehearsal, we expect that ship methane loading is kind of like the first step here, which is an interesting observation based so far on the tests. So it looks like they are really moving into prop load here, which would mean we are looking at the simulated T0 of what? 9-ish?
If they are doing their 50-minute, then we're looking at a T0 of 825.
There's the ship methane thing.
If it's a 50-minute prop load, which based off of, so when they did that first wet dress rehearsal and then they started prop load, it was basically 50 minutes from when prop load started to when they activated the water deluge test. Now, that could have been an indication of that was the T0 and they just went ahead with the water deluge test anyways, or it might have been nothing. But if that was an indication of what their prop load time is now, then T0 would be 8:35 p.m. local. So not 8:35, 8:25 p.m. local. So we'll have to see here for frost to appear.
Which is, we should point out here, another technicality with the methane tank is it first has to fill up all the downcomer and the common bulkhead, and then we will see the frost ring. So for methane it takes a bit longer. I almost the thing is, once you expect it, you start to see things. It's totally it starts playing tricks with your eyes. So we'll see how this goes. Trevor, what's your Andy is asking us here, what's your thoughts on success of IFT3? And first let's start with what would you define as success for IFT3, and do you think they will get there?
Yeah, so I think SpaceX's goal for this test flight is to gather data from the propellant transfer that we've heard them discuss a little bit, and then re-entry data on both stages. So I think SpaceX is expecting this flight to reach the suborbital, almost orbit, whatever you want to call it, trajectory that they were planning for Flight 1, Flight 2, and now Flight 3. right, we've seen that they were very, very close on Flight 2, with Elon going as far as saying if we would have had a payload on board, we would have made it to orbit. So I think just getting to orbit would not be enough of a... It would be successful, but not enough of a success in terms of the data that SpaceX wants to gather. So SpaceX has talked, and SpaceX and NASA have talked about the propellant transfer demonstration, which we expect to be a transfer of propellant from the header tanks to the main tanks, or vice versa, in the ship. And then after that happens, it's rumored that they want to attempt a deorbit burn. So even though they're not in orbit, they would still try to ignite a single sea level engine for on the order of, I believe, 10 seconds to practice that deorbit burn. And then from there, they would have entry of the ship, and then before that, entry of the booster. If they're able to get data through all of those phases of flights, I think this is a tremendous success for SpaceX.
Yeah, that's. I think that would be all about my. Yeah. Ryan, any other opinions here on what you would define as success for Flight 3?
I think success for them is obviously getting past stage separation again. You need to hit that milestone again, and then along with that, I think they try to get booster to survive a boost back burn, but overall get ship to reentry. Whether it survives reentry is another matter entirely. Getting that heat shield down is going to take time, but get it to reentry, and that'll be a huge success for SpaceX if they can get it that far.
Yep, I agree. I'm gonna quickly ask this, answer this actually, from JMac98. Is there anywhere local that is reachable during a closer that a WDR can be watched from? Just got to Brownsville and not sure what to do since I can't go to Boca. So, in general, the best area to watch Boca testing is not Brownsville itself. It's the South Padre area. So it would be South Padre Isle, especially if it's open. You are talking about, I think it's Jetty, right? Jetty Park, or what is it? What's it called? Yeah, I think it's Jetty.
Jetty Park was at the Cape.
No, what is it? At the south of... There's a park right at the south of the... I always forget its name.
Yeah, Jetty Park is definitely at the Cape.
There's a south part at the Isla Blanca Park. Thank you, Sean. Sorry. There's so many parks. Isla Blanca Park, right at the south... if it's open, I'm not sure if it's open today. But in general, the South Padre area is the closest you can get to this. From Brownsville, you will not be able to see this testing. Like, the only accessible areas are Port Isabel and South Padre Isle to watch this testing. Because they also have the road closure and everything, like, farther out even, so it's really hard to see this one. Also, yeah, true. Also, the Rocket Ranch outpost. That's another good shout here, Sean. Thank you so much, Sean, in the back channel. Always helping if like the people that are more local there here helping out with these kind of questions. So thank you so much, Sean. So yeah, the Rocket Ranch outpost, South Padre Isle, Port Isabel. There you go. Let's get into more. Do we see already signs of so far no frost rings, right, Ryan? Like, we are still waiting on a frost ring?
See a frost ring on the ship methane tank. It's kind of hard to tell with the lighting, obviously. I don't see one yet, but I wouldn't be surprised to see one any minute now, because with the tower vent the way it is and the ship methane subcooler going as hard as it is, I would assume they're into prop loading right now. But obviously, we won't have any full evidence of that until we actually see frost on the vehicle.
Yeah, look at the tower vent. It's like on-off thing. It's kind of like starting and then stopping, which usually indicates they're like... So this vent is used to chill down the lines to the ship, and if that starts to stop, that usually means they are also preparing to like load or unloading. So that's like, we are really waiting for signs here again, and we might just be very close away. Is that... That was a light there. I saw a light there. There. You saw that? On the left? Am I crazy?
Left?
Okay, I was I thought I saw a yellow light there. Maybe I'm crazy here.
I mean, we all can be at times.
Yeah, but maybe it was a drone. I'm not sure. It didn't look like a drone. I'm confused here. Looked almost like what are these like bugs called that like emit light?
Fireflies.
Firefly. My God, thank
It's
you.
literally a company named after them.
Wow. So they're not named after the TV show?
There's
That
a
was a joke.
TV show called Firefly?
Yeah. I feel like we are disconnecting here on different levels, Trevor.
I didn't know that.
So I would say we are even now. You didn't know that as a TV show, and I didn't know the name of the bug. So 1-1.
It evened out. Evened each other out. There you go. Yeah.
You're not a
Yeah.
like native English speaker though, so I can't hold the first one against you when I am a human, so you can't hold the second one against me.
Yeah, but I do not think you're like a very like active sci-fi watcher. I bet you Ryan like watched Firefly,
Yeah.
or like at least knows about it.
Oh yeah, I've watched Firefly. It's been a minute. You know, now you make me want to do a rewatch, Adrian. So I got to do that.
Yeah, I initially didn't like when it initially debuted. It took away the German TV slot for Stargate, so I was a bit mad at it. But at some point, I just caught up at that. But initially, I mean, I was a child, so I was easily mad because I couldn't watch Stargate every Wednesday anymore. So there you go. That's,
that is a good. To Elisar in the back channel here. You know, of course, it's always hard to track everything in my spreadsheet, but today is the 3-year anniversary. Wow, words, numbers. 3-year anniversary of the SN10 flight. It's kind of ridiculous we're that far away from it already.
There we go. Yeah, it has been 3 years.
Yeah, 3.
No. No.
Yeah.
I will just ignore that reality. It feels better if I ignore it.
March 3rd of 2021.
Wow. I'm
Yep.
a bit in shock. It's this weird Starbase syndrome where it feels equally an eternity ago and also just like yesterday. Like it's
Hopper feels like yesterday to me.
Yeah, right? But it also feels like an eternity because there's happened so much between it. It's like, I don't know, it always feels like there's a weird time bubble here.
It's what's crazy to me to think about is I remember after SN8, the entire community was thinking, holy cow, orbit is so soon. And it took them over 2 years, like 2.5 years almost, to have the first full launch of Starship. And then here we are almost a year later with technically still no orbital flight yet.
It was almost 2 years exactly between the flight of SN15 and Flight 1, because SN15 was May 5th of 2021, and they didn't fly Booster 7 S24 until April 20th of 2023. So yeah, it was almost 2 years exactly between those flights, so
It's crazy.
a long time.
I still do not spot a frost ring here, I have to
No.
say.
Like watching that OLM vent, it looks like it's picked up a little bit more. I think we're into water flow mode at this point. I think we are.
Yeah.
It's always hard to tell with the amount of venting that's going on around here.
Yeah, and also the ship QD shows some early signs of like you see venting. I feel pretty confident that there is something being loaded onto the ship already.
Oh yeah, I see venting off the QD plate itself.
Yeah, so there is something in this ship. We just cannot see a frost ring yet because it has not touched like a still in the like downcomers and in the in the bulkheads. So
Because the tower vent has shut off again. It's So they might be into full prop load on ship. At least methane prop load.
So, yeah, we'll stand by here for a frosting. We are just patiently avoid one. Because once it appears, and that's the cool thing about this frosting, cool thing, get it? That it will rise quite fast once you see it. So, we'll see. Trevor, is IFT3 planning on having a payload of any sort? Or will it just be like a simulation flight? What's the plan for on the payload side for Flight 3?
A bunch of air and some extra propellant is all they're planning on doing. There's nothing on board. SpaceX isn't having any fun with it like they did with the original Falcon Heavy flight. So I think they'll almost certainly do what they did on Flight 2, which is where they'll carry enough extra oxygen that they would have as if they were filling for a flight with a payload, and then they'll dump that on their way up to orbit. And then once they're in orbit, they'll do the propellant transfer demo that we were talking about earlier.
I'm using this one here that talks about the fact that it's 3 a.m. in Germany and that I'm awake to point out that Alex also is on the other stream we are doing right now, commentating Crew 8. So the NSF team in full force. And yes, while we do this and while we watch the Wet Dress Rehearsal, we are also live from the Cape watching the Crew 8 launch to the International Space Station. So if you have two screens, might be a good use of that right now to what it will give them both a view, because I mean it's a crew launch, right? So there's excitement here on both channels, and I'm really looking forward to see that as well here as we are awaiting the frostbite, which we are patiently awaiting as the tank farm is still strongly going here, and we are just awaiting for booster prop load as well. Just using that to like also mention the other stream here. I thought it would be a good idea. Let's see. So, Ryan, will they take off the scaffolding that is currently on the SQD before OFT? Or is that like permanent scaffolding? What's the scaffolding path?
I hope they take it off, otherwise that rocket's just gonna blow it off itself. I mean, that's a quick way to do it, you know, to have the rocket blow it off, but they'll probably take it off. My guess is once this wet dress rehearsal is done and they're confident they don't need to do anything more to the vehicle itself, or not to the vehicle, but to like the GSE, like QD arm and whatnot, they'll probably go ahead and take off the scaffolding on the QD arm. My guess is the stuff on the OLM, scaffolding on the OLM, will stay until they're basically ready to launch, because they can take that off in just a couple hours. That won't take them long to take off. So, yeah.
There you go. I do not hope for Raptor assisted scaffolding removal. That sounds like just a bunch of iron flying around. That's not optimal, because I don't want to imagine that hitting a van. That would be bad. So let's not hope for that. Trevor, so SpaceX recently explained that. Oh,
you got a ring. You got a frost ring. Lux tank.
Lux tank ring on the ship.
On the ship. There's so many clouds in the way, it's hard to tell, but you can see every little break in the clouds.
Let's see for that. Hard to. This cloud has like the worst timing ever.
Right?
Like that's hackable timing, cloud. Like hackable timing here with the vending. Go ahead, Trevor.
This is actually Vandenberg live.
Yeah, this is like the fog machine that just turned on to hide the frost ring from us. Like we are.
Oh, yeah.
Totally.
You could kind of see it there.
It was there for a moment at back, gone again.
You know, I gotta say, trying to record all the times that we see a lot of this stuff, so we can like get a really good understanding of their countdown here, gets it's really hard with all this cloud and the bad lighting. Like, oh,
there was for a moment. So it's the good old philosophical Starship question: is there a frost ring if nobody can see it?
Right.
Was there an SM-11 launch?
Right.
These philosophical Starship questions.
I still feel like we were so cheated out of one of the coolest explosions in the program. Like,
Yes, it hurts. I hate that I brought it up now because it hurts every time. Every time I think of that.
There it is.
Crosswing, rock tank, nice. I also think you can see some discoloration on the methane tank, which usually means the temperature has dropped, which means there's also methane in there, which we expect, but just not enough yet to touch the tank walls.
Oh, wait, is that?
Huh?
OM vent is off. It's been off for a little bit.
So we are now expecting a frost ring on the booster as well. Everything is progressing as planned here, as both stages are getting filled here. We are now standing by for a LOX frost ring on the booster, or a methane ring, basically. We are looking forward. But this feels good. This feels good. They are already past the first wet dress rehearsal, if I recall correctly. Or roughly at the same. Like this was about the same.
I think they had some frost on. They had frost on ship, and I think they had a little bit on booster on the first one. I'll go back and look here real quick. I know that on the second one they did get a few rings into prop load on both vehicles. So we'll see how far they get in this one. Hopefully they get the whole thing. It'll be a fully frosted Starship at night. We haven't had that yet. Full stack frosty at night.
Somebody's saying in chat the frost ring is in a super position if you observe it or not. It's depending. So there we go. It's complicated. So Trevor, I wanted to ask you this before because we know now, thanks to SpaceX and the FAA publishing their mishap investigation, why the ship failed. And we had this whole thing about extra oxygen being dumped that they actually didn't need and was more to remember that. And now Reddy is asking, how do you even carry extra oxygen? Shouldn't the LOX tank always be full?
Yeah. I suppose my language earlier wasn't quite as careful, or I wasn't quite as careful with it as I should have been. What they were doing is they had, as you correctly identify, a full load of liquid oxygen as they would on any launch. But they wanted to, when they reached orbit, simulate having the ship...
I'm so sorry to interrupt you. We will go back to that answer, but we have a LOX ring as well.
Awesome, yeah.
Go back to your answer.
Yes, they wanted when the ship was on orbit for it to be as if they had a payload on top and not have all of the spare liquid oxygen, since they, if your vehicle has less mass, you're obviously not going to need quite as much liquid oxygen. So they were venting it overboard. And that's what ultimately caused the explosion, or the termination of ship 25. I almost just said 26. Boy, Kevin is really getting to me.
It's never gonna be ship 26.
Yeah, thankfully. But I was kind of disappointed with what SpaceX and the FAA gave us because they said that it was caused, this venting caused some fire, which damaged some lines, losing communications, and the vehicle terminated itself. I'm like, okay, that makes sense, but there must have been a fire there already for the liquid or for the oxygen to amplify. So what was the initial cause of that fire? That's what I really want to know.
Yeah, I really think they are it was of course nice to get this published thing about the mishap investigation, but I also felt there were a few things in there where you're but you really didn't address what really went wrong there, right? So we had the same with the booster, where they mentioned, engines were going out, and one of them, I think they called it, what was it? There was a great term for explosion there. I forgot the explosion term, but they didn't.
Unexpected combustion event.
Yeah, an unexpected combustion event. There you go. And I feel like they didn't properly address why were these engines going out unplanned in the first place, right?
So we've got
And that's-
methane frost ring here.
Nice.
Can I just say I was doing an A/B test, and they loaded like a full ring. They loaded like a full ring on the booster for locks in like a minute.
If I recall correctly, the old speed was around 1 minute 45 to 2 minutes. If I'm not like, I always remember one ring 2 minutes. That's my old counting I had.
Which would kind of go along with them nearly cutting the countdown in half, like a 50-minute count.
Yeah,
I should
Which
track.
is-
So,
bonkers.
I mean, what is it, Trevor? I think it's Falcon's. Yeah, I'm trying to remember what Falcon Heavy is.
9 is 35 minutes, and I believe Heavy. Oh boy, is it 45 or 55? It's somewhere in there. Let me get back to you in a minute.
Yeah, it's like even so. Either way, we are talking about the same ballpark for Falcon Heavy or Starship, like probably in terms
With-
of fueling countdown.
Yeah, so on Falcon Heavy, it's T-minus 53 minutes that LD verifies go for prop load, and then T-minus 50 minutes that RP1 load begins on the first stage, and then it's T-minus 45 minutes when stage 1 liquid oxygen begins loading.
So if they can pull this off in 50 minutes, like they can load a Starship, which I don't remember. I don't know how much propellant Falcon Heavy holds, but you're talking like 5,000 tons of propellant in 50 minutes. That is somewhat insane, to say the least.
Absolutely, I think somewhat insane is a very accurate description for this. Like, I would agree with that. Let's thank some more people here while we undergo fueling here of Booster 10 and Ship 28, which are preparing for, or like are in the progress actually, of performing the Wet Dress Rehearsal in preparation for the third flight of Starship in what we hope be like a few weeks from now. So there you go. We'll see how this all develops, but the LOX tank is filling up rapidly here. Like, look at that. We just talked about it, and it's already filling up rapidly. Let me thank some people here. Joseph Kocher with becoming a Capcom member. Thank you so much. Josh Zero coming in again with a $5 super chat saying, one last bad thought. SLS replace SRBs with super heavy boosters. That would tore the core stage of SLS apart. That's
Might as well just use a super heavy booster instead of the SRBs, because like the super heavy booster in place of the core stage and SRBs, the super heavy booster is more powerful off the top of my head, because that's like what? No, it's
Yep.
Is it more powerful? I'm trying to do the math in my head.
Wait, sorry. What was your question?
If the super heavy booster is more powerful than the core stage and SRBs combined.
Of course,
So-
yeah.
By far. What am I thinking?
I mean,
So-
the super heavy. Go ahead, Trevor.
I think it's important to highlight that the SRBs on SLS and super heavy do very different things. So the
Yes.
advantage of SRBs is they drastically increase your thrust to weight ratio, and that allows you to more efficiently use the delta V given by your main tank. So if you look at like the delta V that's added to SLS by the purely the addition of the solid fuel on the SRBs, it's like not that much. I mean, it's a decent amount since the SRBs are so massive, but it's not that much. When super heavy is designed to have a high thrust to weight ratio to begin with, so that already does work a lot more efficiently to use the delta V that's on board the vehicle. So with SLS, since the core stage's thrust to weight ratio is almost certainly less than 1 on the ground without the SRBs, you couldn't even start moving yet. So you need the SRBs, and when Starship is very much not the case. So it just comes down to SRBs don't give you that much extra delta V. They mainly just allow you to use delta V more efficiently.
There we go. It's different vehicles, right? It's a different design. It's a different philosophy. I think they're like very much on the opposite spectrums of how you can design a vehicle. in terms of philosophy.
The last thing you want for recovering a vehicle is a sustainer stage. Like, you want as little mass to be in orbit as possible if you're going to recover it.
Okay, so this is kind of ridiculous. If you look over on this shot here, you look over at the tank farm, the really, really big clouds you see are the 3 vents for the 4 methane subcoolers going nuts. Like, those are just the vents.
And these are like 40, 50 meter high clouds, right? Like,
Yeah,
these are like let's say 30. Like, these are, it's always next to Starship, everything looks small, but this is not small. Like, this is enormous. And like, look at this camera. It's like,
where'd the stack go?
Spot the methane subcoolers. There they are, in the middle. Producing all of this. It's crazy what this tank farm can do. Jacob Hop here coming in with a $10 super chat saying, why does the booster need a stage 0 to help it start up when the ship does not? Will a stage 0 equivalent need to be constructed on Mars? So what's up with this whole stage 0 starting up Raptor engines, Ryan?
So that is, if I remember correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, Trevor, they do the same thing on Falcon 9 where they use ground side, I think, they use ground side to helium to spin start the Merlins, kind of like they do the same thing here with Starship. They use ground side helium to spin up the outer 20 engines in order to keep what you have. Like, so you don't have to use the helium that you have in your COPVs. They use ground side. So you save on weight on the vehicle, so you don't need to add more COPVs. And then you also you save on plumbing on the inside of the booster, so that you just don't have that extra weight, and you just use the QDs. Now it does kind of add in like 20 failure points if any of those QDs have an issue and you can't spin up that engine. Although so far they haven't. I don't think they've really had any issues with it. So, but that's what it means by the OLM starts the engines, is it spins them up, and it also provides the gaseous oxygen and gaseous methane for the torch igniters to light them off.
Yep. It's and of course with stage 2 you cannot do that ground based because you don't want to ignite your stage 2 in ground.
No.
That would be unfortunate.
They obviously won't need one on Mars, given Super Heavy won't be on Mars.
Yeah, because Starship only, because lower gravity on Mars and less atmosphere. So you can just use a Starship to return back, in theory. Pending all more details about what we will get about this, but one day, hopefully, a Starship returns from Mars. So, there we go.
So
go ahead.
They are farther along than the last 2 times here. They are constantly venting the LOX tanks as they put more propellant in. They're venting out to keep the pressure maintained, and they're quickly loading this thing up. We're almost at half full on the LOX tank, and the frost ring first appeared at 7:56. So they're 11 minutes in, and they're almost at half full.
It's kind of hard to see where the ship is. It's like because of this camera, of course, is right now facing with the TPS, so it's really hard to see. But the ship is also kind of in a similar state here. There we go. Wait for that cloud to disappear. There you see it.
Ooh, that looks cool.
Yep. Really cool views we're getting here.
So, Adrian,
Perfect timing, Jay.
do I dare say something risky?
Uh-oh.
So, I know I'm going to jinx it by saying this, but at this point in the countdown, we don't. It's very rare that SpaceX run into an issue. Generally, the issues that they run into are at the start of the countdown and at the end of the countdown when they start going through things like engine wiggle, and they start having to very carefully watch pressures in all of the tanks as if they were going into a launch attempt. So I feel like we can safely assume at this point that we will continue seeing these levels rise to the very top before SpaceX is likely to reach the next area where they could reach a lot of problems. And I know I just cursed it by saying that.
Yeah, I think I think that was just the biggest jinx that we ever had on the Wet Dress. It's you did say this after they aborted in a very similar state on the last attempt. It's like that was some serious jinxing here. I agree with you.
It was a bit earlier in the previous attempt.
True. But I'm agreeing with you on a factual level, but still, there was a if now the tank farm suddenly goes silent, I mean it's on you.
It's on you. It's all on Trevor. Just remember, if it does scrub, we all blame Trevor. Okay, chat.
Absolutely. But thank for your sacrifice, Trevor, for being the potential excuse for SpaceX.
No problem.
Andy Stat here coming in with a $9.99 super chat saying, "Geez, I love this stuff. Thanks for your coverage, guys. You're very welcome, and I hope you enjoy it." Paul Webb coming in with a $20 tip saying, "Such great coverage of both events. Took a trip from Vermont to KC in November, then to Starbase 2 weeks ago on my Tesla. Watching back home via Starlink on several screens. The future is now." That's really a proper future setup. Tesla, Starlink, being at KC, being at Starbase. That's some serious commitment here. Hope you enjoyed all of that, and thanks again for the support. Coco Cats coming in with Red Team membership gifted. Thank you so much. Bill R upgraded their membership to Capcom, which gives you access to our membership Discord. So make sure to join us on Discord and enjoy all the very serious and the very non-serious discussion, especially the later one. David Grapper coming in with a $19.99 super chat. "Do we know what sort of updates were made to the OLM booster or ship since the last launch?" So who of you two want to take this? What's the major upgrades we have seen or can talk about?
So to the OLM, I think a lot of it was still refurbishment and even some repairs still from Flight 1. I'll tell you this, everyone. Basically, when SpaceX got the OLM and the pad into a condition where it could launch Flight 2 as best as they could, they used a lot of the time in January and in February when there was no vehicle on the pad to do extra work, like making sure the hold down clamps are aligned, make sure that, the ship QD is still in a good condition, beefing that up. One thing they did do is they removed a lot of the shielding around the hold down arms. And it doesn't look like they ever put that back in. So it could be one of those things where SpaceX had 2 launches and then realized they don't actually need that anymore. The arms may retract enough and they don't actually need the shielding around them. So there's that possibility there. In terms of the vehicles, Booster 10 it's instead of the older style common dome, it is now an elliptical dome. There are some small changes here and there. It's got 2 square Starlink dishes on some of the chines, and it's got a few other upgrades here and there. But there isn't really a lot of differences between 10 and 9, other than the common dome change. S28, on the other hand,
there's also
S25.
the baffle changes to substantially larger baffles.
Well. Yeah, the one thing, the added weld marks to the bottom, which could be baffles, or the thing is we don't really know what they are. They could be baffles. It seems like a logical conclusion that's what they could be to help with sloshing, but unless we look inside the tanks, we obviously don't really know. But yeah, that is they did add something to the bottom of the LOX tank, and it could be baffles kind of thing. And then along with Ship 28's got a much better heat shield. It's a little bit more redesigned. They've been doing that between ships. They'll change the tile layout and stuff like that, make it more simpler. It's got extra stringers in the LOX tank, which is an upgrade that S26. It started with S26. It has electric TVC for its Raptors, which also started with Ship 26. Yeah, I know. There's a lot of upgrades that started with that ship that went on to other ones.
No, Kevin, that doesn't mean it's good.
Yeah, it's like we are glad that happened. Still not good. Sorry, Kevin.
It does have the same upgraded. Both vehicles do have the same upgraded FTS box that was on 25 and 9. And then along with that, they're getting rid of vents on. So the funny thing is they're adding vents to booster, like they added the vents at the top of the methane tank, but they're taking vents off of ship. So ship used to have 2 LOX vents, one on the right side, one on the left. Now it only has one on the left side. It doesn't have one on the right. That's why when you see a LOX vent go off on the left side, it's because it's the only LOX vent that it really has for that side. And then, if I'm trying to remember anything, the upgraded Starlink dishes on the nose cone and the added cowbells to the top as well. So there's a lot of different changes here and there as SpaceX keeps iterating and keep updating these vehicles. Ship 29 has got a few things here and there as well, and then Booster 11's got a few upgrades once we get to Flight 4. But yeah, they got changes all around. So.
You know, there's this mute button that you can sometimes press, and if you press it, then you cannot talk. That's interesting technology. Very interesting technology. Thanks for that technology. Trevor, is this whole test here part of a licensing process, or is this purely a SpaceX test?
Almost certainly both, but we don't know for sure both. It's generally the FAA wants to see successful testing of vehicles, and they want to get data from a test like this before giving SpaceX their launch license. But even if it wasn't for that, this is almost certainly a test that SpaceX would want to perform anyway. SpaceX is able to learn a lot about these vehicles, and it's easier to do that when you don't need to coordinate an entire launch and you can have a little bit more wiggle room and whatnot. So the best answer is both.
Absolutely. And just to answer some questions here, yes, we are seeing a quite fast load time so far here on this wet dress rehearsal based on previous tests. We will, of course, get back to you all of that once we have really looked at the numbers here, because doing that on the fly sometimes can be a bit challenging. But we will, of course, look at that. I think at some point we should probably do maybe a comparison next to each other, where you can see wet dress rehearsal of Flight 2, Flight 1, and Flight 3 next to each other. I'm adding that to the potential list. I'm putting this idea out here, which we probably should do.
They are still loading. So they are continuing to load. They're basically at the top of the chines now. So they're getting close to 2/3 on the LOX tank, and they started loading this thing 20 minutes ago. So,
you can almost see on the right view actually how you can see it. You can see how it goes up,
yeah, it's fast enough to see how fast it goes, which is just ridiculous. That's a lot of liquid oxygen.
Yeah, this is a 9-meter diameter rocket. They are moving quite a lot of stuff into these vehicles at the moment right now. And don't forget, this is just one tank we are looking at right now on the right side. They are doing this simultaneously with 4 tanks. This is it's quite some pumps.
If my old math is right, which it very well may not be, I did this math a while ago, but I think each ring is about 116 cubic meters of volume, and then you basically which equates to I think it's 142 tons of LOX per ring and 50 tons of methane per ring. I think is where that goes. If my math is wrong, someone will tell me, but I think that's where it was at. I did that a while ago, but that's kind of that's just each ring, and it's a minute per ring. That's kind of ridiculous.
Trevor, there's a question here about a Falcon 9 question. I'm gonna modify it a bit here to make it maybe a bit Falcon 9 versus Starship. Why does Falcon 9 use a TE and not a regular launch tower? Why is Starship using a launch tower and Falcon 9 uses a TE? What's the difference?
Yeah, so if I was to guess what the motivation was, and I'm not an aerospace engineer, much less have I worked on Falcon or Starship, so pure guess on my part, but I would say one of the requirements for Falcon 9 was they wanted to be able to transport via truck Falcon 9 from SpaceX's production site in Hawthorne, California, to the launch sites in Vandenberg, California, and then, of course, the ones at the Cape in Florida. So part of that is that's what, for example, determined the diameter of Falcon 9 to be, just over 3 meters. Because that's the largest size that they can easily transport across the United States without needing, to start shutting down roads, really worrying about what bridges and whatnot they go under. And as part of that, for that transportation, they need Falcon 9 to be able to be horizontal and be structurally sound. So that mandated, then from that you can start doing like integration horizontally and all of that. So it makes a lot of sense for Falcon 9 to have this style of TE where they mount the rocket horizontally, since it's a lot easier to have horizontal space than vertical, and then roll it out and make the vehicle vertical. However, for something like Starship, there's, zero way that they can have these vehicles horizontal. Just getting them from horizontal to vertical would be an enormous challenge since it's so big. Then, let alone you'd have structural issues and whatnot. So my guess would be that for Falcon 9, TE made the most sense since they already were doing everything horizontally, when for Starship, horizontally is not an option, so you may as well just have the fixed tower.
Yep. There we go. I like that answer. Like, I was reading that and I'm like, yeah, that's a really good question. I'm really enjoying that. And just to update everybody, maybe some new people joined here, maybe some people were not here for the beginning. We are watching Starship and SpaceX, of course, performing a wet dress rehearsal here on the Orbital Launch Mount with Booster 10 and Ship 28. You can see both vehicles are already into fueling. So far, we think everything is progressing quite well. The tank farm is still active, vehicles are still getting fueled, everything looks good so far, and the goal for this is basically to simulate a launch-like countdown in this rehearsal of activities that you would perform on launch days, to clear them for a potential launch of the third Starship Flight Stack somehow later this month. I'm always being very careful when I talk about when this launch might be, but that's where we are here. So let's say
one thing that I think is worth talking about is I think the time between launches 2 and 3 is a little bit more than a lot of us wanted. But as you can see on screen right now, SpaceX is already preparing to do testing of the Flight 4 vehicles. With that ship there on the left is Ship 29, which is to be mounted on suborbital pad B. So hopefully that means that if everything goes right on this flight, the time between flights 3 and 4 will be very short.
By the way, it's already on pad B. I think they put it on. Oh, what was it? I don't even have that time, man. When you're busy at work, you forget to update your spreadsheets. Pretty sure it was like a day or two ago when they placed it on pad B.
Okay.
So
the load spreader threw me off.
yeah. They still have the 2-point lifter attached to it. So March 2nd is when I got. So yesterday.
Somebody pointing out here, can you show the ship side of the Frosty bit, please? Well, it's a bit complicated because the camera of that is also in the middle of this venting that you can see there right now. So it's like, there you go, there's the ship side. How do you like that? Great, right? It's a bit complicated right now. So sometimes we get like these small gaps in venting. Yeah, that might be one. No, that moved up. Sorry, but that's the reality. We're doing your best here. But the wind is that's always the big random factor for us, right? Like sometimes the wind is good, sometimes you have good condition for the wind, sometimes the wind goes into the direction where it kind of is hiding a starship. So yeah, looking at the booster here, look at that. It's really 2/3, almost 3/4, somewhere in there.
I'd say that's about 3/4 full for the LOX tank. I would say about that. Yeah, that's It's almost there. It's getting there.
Yeah, so if pace continues, okay, we are once again in a situation where I look at a very even number that is approaching us here, and like maybe that's just me, but sometimes these even numbers in the past were like really like indicators of a potential simulated or actual T0. So it's like 8:30 is coming up, and they can like. Maybe a bit later though. Like I think 6 minutes might cut it close here.
I'm thinking 1 hour for prop load, so which would be like 8:35.
There we go.
I could see 8:35. I could see another 10 minutes for like final fill and pressurize the tanks. I could see like 10 minutes. Yeah, and even if they cut it down to an hour, I mean the last time they Flight 1 and 2 were 97 minutes for prop load. If they can shave 37 minutes off that, like
that's impressive.
That's impressive.
There's also the potential that at this point they will start to go a bit slower because like topping off a bit, like that might be an area where they go a bit slower. So just like not everything is set in stone yet. I will put you both here on the spot and ask you a question. Starting with you, Trevor, you have the honor to go to this question first.
Gosh.
Will we see a Deluge test today? And if yes, will it be part of the countdown or after the testing today?
My guess is yes. Probably. I would say probably as they will simulate the T0 fully, so they'll have the T0 of the water deluge and T0 of the wet dress aligned.
Ryan?
I'll say maybe. The reason why I say maybe is because they did the deluge test during the first wet dress rehearsal attempt. So that might have been enough to test it. And the other part of that is because they do have a limit on how many times they can use it in a year. Now, not to say that they would reach that limit based off the amount of vehicles that they have built or might be ready. I doubt they would even come close to hitting those 30 uses in a year. So they may do it, but we'll see.
There we go. It's it seems maybe it's just me, but I think they're going a bit slower here. Like the last few minutes.
It does seem like they slowed down a little bit.
Yeah, which again they're close to topping off here, so that's
it's hard.
That might be part for it.
It's hard to see if ship is nearly done with all the methane subcoolers going as crazy as they are.
I will do my favorite thing now, which is let's go to the ship cam. Didn't work. There we go. Yes, it's almost full.
Can we catch a break in the clouds?
I mean, there's like, oh yeah, I saw some tank there.
A little bit.
It's like the cool thing is, and I want to say this, like this camera is actually really cool when you get these gaps because it's like the venting in front and then like these gaps. It's amazing. It's just you have to have the right moment here. So there we go. Like, we cannot verify the ship loading here. Sorry, it's probably close. There we go.
It looks nearly done.
That's yeah. I think both vehicles are like maybe like 20% to go, somewhere in that range.
Or less.
So
yeah,
20%
or less.
So far progressing very, very well. Certainly the furthest they have so far gone with this flight stack in terms of wet dress rehearsal. So we are thinking maybe a simulated tier 0 in about the next 15 minutes or so, somewhere in that range. Well, we'll see. We'll see how this develops. So let's hit some more question here. Bruce is giving us the the okay to speculate here. Speculate, please. What do you think caused the last two wet dress rehearsal fails or scrubs? Ryan, you want to start with this one? What do you think the last two wet dress rehearsals scrub?
I really don't know, to be honest, because when they had first done those two aborts, and then they brought in a bunch of like vaporizers and tanks, I had figured, okay, maybe when they went ahead and removed those water tanks, they had lost a little bit of the ability to backfill the tanks with pressurized, whether it's I guess gaseous methane, gaseous LOX, or gaseous oxygen, or gaseous nitrogen. They do that by basically putting the cryo through a heat exchanger using the water, and then just kind of put the gaseous back into the tanks to keep it pressurized, keep the tanks at a regular pressure as they pull liquid out and put it into the vehicles as they load prop. So I thought that might be an issue, but it doesn't. I don't think so, because they'd only lifted a few tanks. I don't know if they actually hooked them up. They might have hooked them up by now, but it could have been a simple issue of something broke in a tank farm, or heck, the fact that they rolled the booster all the way back to the Mega Bay and then put it on a work stand could kind of say, oh, they might have broke something on the vehicle. But then again, if they did, it doesn't look like it was anything big, because it was in the bay for 7 days. They rolled it back out, and here they are again trying a third time. So I really don't know, to be honest.
Here we go. It's one of these, like, again, we are speculating. Trevor, any additional inputs on this, or are you agreeing with Ryan's assessment?
Yeah, I think Ryan covered it. Unfortunately, like, this is just when I so wish that we're back in the old days of when Elon would update on all of these minor things. But unfortunately, we don't get those updates on X nowadays. So.
Yep, that's sometimes sadly happening. So we'll see. Trevor, are the chips interchangeable? If they found a serious issue, for example, with ship 28, could they easily swap it out and just, like, use ship 29?
That's a good question. I think largely yes. There are some changes between these ships, but I think between the same version, right, ship 28 and ship 29 are more or less sister ships, so they're very similar. They could do that with minimal effort. That said, I don't think SpaceX would want to do that. I think they would rather just keep going with ship 28 and perform the fixes that they need to. We've seen throughout the Starship program, SpaceX has been somewhat not willing to change the flight order. So, like, for example, way back in the day when SN9 tipped over in the high bay, there was talk at first of, will SpaceX fly SN10 before SN9? And SpaceX elected to fully fix SN9 ahead of flying SN10.
Yep. And just to add, answer this question here attached to a super chat here, Ed's asking a $5 super chat. If I remember correctly, wasn't Starship not allowed to launch and wet dress on weekends so people could use the beach? Almost positive. To answer that, they have a limited amount of weekend closures they can use. So basically, they are like they can kind of like use this right to use some weekend restrictions, unless they are in certain regions of like the year where they are not allowed to do that. There are like certain times where the Sundays are totally off. Also, especially on holidays and everything, like that's where they're completely off. But they can submit road closures for the weekend and limited amount of time. Yeah, it's not unlimited. Like, for example, the weekday closures, and even the weekday closures have a theoretical upper limit. They can close the road for a year. I think it's 500 hours. I'm not totally blanking here. I think the draft environmental or the final environmental assessment said that the agreement with the county is in place, and that said 500 hours a year. If I'm not totally out of here. So yeah, just to quickly answer that. So this is allowed, but only a certain amount of times. So there you go. Ryan, are we missing anything? Are they wrapping up like loading on tanks yet? Are they still loading? What's the status here? Give it a quick update.
Well, it looks like they're doing some small venting here and there as they finish topping off the tanks here. You can see they just did another vent on the LOX there, and they're doing a vent on the methane. They're allowed to vent a little bit of methane. It's not the end of the world, but they try to do as little as possible. So yeah, it looks like they're in like the last ring or two on loading. So it looks like it's probably going to be like a little over an hour I don't because it looks like they went kind of fast and then they slowed it down a little bit. Maybe they were going too fast, or maybe they wanted to just go a little bit slower to get some more data. Because the thing we all have to understand is as much as this is a wet dress rehearsal and they're trying to simulate their countdown, it could be a little bit different on launch day. They may like go full bore on launch day rather than do this slowdown. They do this to mainly gather the data that they need to do the launch. So.
Yep. So we are getting really close here to the wrapping up of this. You can see from time to time the vent here going on as they vent the excess gaseous here as they make room for the liquids. Trevor, a question here that was asked is like I actually found it very interesting, is because because they said they don't want to vent excess liquid oxygen again on the next flight, right? So are they loading less liquid oxygen on this wet dress rehearsal?
That's a good question. Well, I mean, the amount that they would load is probably quite small, so I can't imagine that we will be able to tell based on frost markings, but that's something that we'll try to pay attention to for sure.
Yeah, it's I actually think it's a really interesting question because, of course, it could always mean they're just like pressurizing it a bit less, so the tanks are still full. But that would also like Raptors are probably designed for a certain like tank pressure and everything, so that wouldn't make sense.
Sorry to
do
this.
Go ahead.
So, oh wow, that was a perfect timing there, Jay. So the tower vent started back up again, and it looks like ship load is complete.
Oh, here we go.
Looks like at 8:34 ship load was completed. So
yeah, it's apps like we are now just waiting on a booster here. Just to confirm this again, because people maybe new to this, like always trying to also update everybody who has not watched 50,000 Starship streams at this point. The tower vent will return basically once they have started to wrap up the like ship loading, because that's the line purge now that is happening, both before and after loading. So that means the ship is probably done. We have a fully fueled upper stage here, just waiting on the booster here, which has like 1.5 rings left on each tank. Looks like that. Maybe even a bit less.
It looks like methane is nearly done. It's hard to tell though, but it looks like it's near the top of that. LOX is close.
LOX should completely close, right? Like, because LOX basically in the middle is the common bulkhead, so LOX should basically be like connected to the methane tank here, besides like a very small gap.
Oh,
so
there you go. Yeah, methane subcoolers have stopped.
So methane load is complete. Because they have stopped completely, methane load has completed on both stages. So we really have to like A/B test now the LOX tank, and we'll see if they load more, because that's the only thing that is remaining here, the booster LOX tank apparently. So
also, which means we get our views back with the with the cologne complete.
That's true. The camera that basically completely got blocked all day. There it is. Look at that. That's some beauty shots. I love it.
I'm just saying, so far I didn't jinx it.
Trevor, you want to just do you want to like stop? Like, can you not?
I'm sorry, I had to.
Like, he's really pushing for it. Like he got away with the first time, and now he's just mentioning it again. Like you're really risking it here, Trevor. You're really risking it.
So it looks like the tower vent went back on at 8:34. Which means ship load was complete. So it looks like all that was left was the methane load, and then the methane subcoolers went off at 8:35. Which probably means that methane load on both vehicles is also complete. So we are just waiting on the booster LOX tank here. and which should be done any minute. So we're in like a minute and a half. We'll be coming up on an hour and 5 minutes since we really started seeing like frost rings appear. So let's see here.
Really impressive pace here from SpaceX with this. Really, really impressive. I so far looks like they have implemented the right things. Whatever went wrong, like we speculated a bit earlier before, what might have gone wrong with the first and the second wet dress rehearsal attempt. But it seems like whatever they did, they learned something from this. And that's always the thing we notice with SpaceX. They're kind of good at like implementing and learning fixes.
Yeah, and can
Trevor,
we just
go ahead.
highlight one more time that this is all being done at SpaceX and NSF simultaneously, while SpaceX is about an hour and 15 minutes away from Crew 8. So I think it just goes to show the pace of this company is insane, that they have the teams to support Crew 8, the teams to support Starship, the teams to support Transporter 10 tomorrow morning, I think, and then a bunch of Starlink launches. Like, the pace is just insane.
Absolutely. Ryan, do you think they will perform an engine chill with this?
If they go by anything, engine chill should have been underway for probably the last like 10-15 minutes is my guess. The thing is, we can't tell with the amount of venting on the ground. We can't see the LOX pool that they have for the engine chill vent. The only way we'd be able to tell is if we can see venting coming from the bottom of the booster, which is also kind of hard to tell with the amount of venting going on. So they should be well into engine chill if they were doing since they're doing a full count. They should be well into it by now.
Yep, you can totally see, by the way, now how the gap is slowly closing on the LOX and methane tank as well. Like there you can see like another. I think there you can see the upper limit almost like of the LOX tank, right? That's
what it looks like.
So we are quite code here.
Can we get an enhanced, Jay?
I'm not sure if like there might be some time lapses also going on. So we will always have to see here.
Yeah.
But we might be close to wrapping up this test here. We'll see. And of course, after that, and just to point that out, Trevor, like, let's talk about like what's next after they successfully completed wet dress rehearsal, because there's some quite delicate steps still ahead of them, right?
Yeah, so following wet dress, assuming everything goes nominally and they don't need to conduct another, there will for sure be one more destack of the vehicles, and that will be for FTS installation. We saw ahead of Flight 1, this was done really late. Ahead of Flight 2, it was done a decent bit earlier. So what we expect to see is they'll bring out their special team with the charges, mount the charges on booster, mount the charges on ship. And then if it's like last time, they'll probably then immediately pull the pins and then stack ahead of flight. And then at that point, they just need to wait for everything to set in place for a launch date. So there's a good chance that if this test is successful, we'll see a destack, and that will be hopefully the final destack ahead of launch.
Let's hope for that. I really don't want to see like let's say the few destacks of the last flight stack, which sometime got unstacked. I heard there were the one or the other stack happening.
Yeah, that was a lot.
Yeah, that was that was. Let's not do that. That would be really, really kind.
Did I?
But also, it was only the second flight of the vehicle, so like it's to be totally expected that they'll run into a lot of problems on these early flights.
Go ahead, Ryan.
I think I missed that. It looks like the OLM vent started back up at 8:38, which would indicate finish of prop load.
So this might be a fully fueled Starship? Oh.
Yeah.
Like almost fully fueled. There's some gaps here in the LOX tank, which is interesting to say the least, but it seems like they have stopped loading here. So
Sometimes that the frost doesn't always go over those stringers and things like that around that area. So that could be why, but because it looks like there's more frost. If you can tell from this angle, looks like there's more frost on the left-hand side of this view compared to the right-hand side. So I think it's full.
So that's good news. So we, of course, that's the tricky part here. We don't know yet exactly what their T0 for today's test looked like. It could be a Deluge test. It could be a FireX test. It could just be like a depress and detanking. That's the kind of unknown here, right? That's the what's gonna happen here kind of question. So we'll see what happens here in the next few minutes, but we are certainly in this very like crunch time final part of this countdown today of this wet dress rehearsal. So we will see what's going on here. Space Ignorant here becoming a Capcom member. Thank you so much, Space Ignorant, for that. I'd rather be flying an X-Wing with a $4.99 super chat. Do you guys have one manager per stream, or is Sean practicing his schizophrenia right now? So basically, how it works is we have one producer right now for each stream and a full commentary team, and there's like other people supporting the stream. It's shoutouts to the whole NSF team, like doing crew while doing a wet dress rehearsal. That's everybody's really like working here for all of this. And there was also field people earlier out today in Boca who also helped like support new cameras and everything. Like this was truly a effort of many hands and many voices coming together to be able to we can both cover Crew 8 while also doing a wet dress rehearsal. And shout outs to everybody.
Where did the tank farm go?
It's disappeared. It's teleported.
Okay. And Ship 29 is getting a nice bath of cryogenics, so.
Oh, there's tank farm is really spooling up again. Interesting.
Kinda odd right now.
Maybe they're like, do I dare to say pressurizing for like final T0, like basically getting the flight, like press for flight simulation kinda.
Yeah, maybe. We'll have to watch out for the detonation suppression system test, the water spray under the pad. If they do that, then they're basically, and we know they're seconds away from a T0, and then if they do the water deluge test, I mean that'll be kind of obvious. But we'll have to wait and see on that here.
You cannot hide a water deluge. If it happens, it happens. Also here, I want to quickly thank Jawa, a name we see so many times, gifting 50 Red Team memberships again. I don't know how many people you already like got the Red Team at this point, Jawa, but thank you so much. It really is appreciated, and that's a lot of hopefully happy faces that enjoy all of these perks. Thank you so much. Really. And I hope everybody says thank you to Jerva. That's what we do here. Like if you get gifted something, you say thank you. That's the right thing to do. So there you go. So interesting note here, and I want to like you see this as well. Like I think the LOX tank is full because you can see the frost on the left, right?
Yeah, that's what I was looking at before. You can see the frost on one side, but not on the other, which is always kind of a weird one.
Yeah. It's like it's a weird thing, but there has to be something there, or it's very cold air right now. That could also be the case, and that's frosting the tank. But it's an interesting thing to see right now because it from everything we see right now, it feels like they're done with the fueling. Like they're like at the step where the vehicles is fully full, but there's this missing gap in the middle. So that's an interesting observation here. We have to wait and see how this all changes. But I'm staring like at the bottom of the at the OLM and everything because I want to see like if we see any indication of FireX or anything. So, oh, there we go. That's a cool view for that now.
That is a really cool view with the spotlight, all of the vapors coming off the booster. Oh, that is a really, really cool view.
I would say the
Go
spotlight
ahead,
is a good indication that something down there is going to happen, whether it's fire X or water deluge.
it's like, hey, SpaceX, can you point at the area where we should look at? Yeah, no problem. Look here. It's a good point. Yeah, I think we see some puffings from some of the engines. If I'm not totally if I'm not totally blind here, but I think there's some like condensation from the bottom of the booster. That could be some engine puffings from there. Chill down.
Yeah, you
and
can
of course,
see
just want to reiterate that we don't expect a static fire today. This is Wet Dress Rehearsal, which will basically simulate everything but a static fire. There will not be a static fire today, most likely.
Most likely.
Yeah,
Most likely.
I was very sure about that, and then I thought about which company we are covering right now, and I went to like most likely.
You can see from that close a view, you can see the line going around the OLM, which is the engine chill line, which then gets piped over to the engine chill pond, basically, which you can actually see from this view. If you see the venting over off to the left side, over on the ground there, that's going to be the LOX pond, which is where they pipe all the basically used up the vented LOX from the engine chill is basically where they do it. So,
yep, it's so we can confirm there has been some engine chilling going on here as well, as we expect, because they want to show everything. Some slight venting here, as we are waiting to see what SpaceX plans next for us today. It's the wild Wet Dress Rehearsal roller coaster I was about to say, but I'm not sure if that's. I guess it's that now.
The tower vent and the OLM vent stopped and then came back. So wonder if that's final press.
Yeah, like press top off and.
Yeah. And
also the like everything in terms of venting has like chilled down a bit. Chilled down. So it's really like it's just standing there. It's really an interesting view. I love it. I really love this view right now. I mean, nothing is cooler than a fully fueled Starship for me. Like, it just looks so cool.
And then at night, it just makes it that much cooler. Honestly.
Yeah, it's a totally new view, kinda.
It's really weird that this is starting to feel somewhat normal to have this sight of a fully stacked Starship on the pad.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, it's the third time they're doing this now, that they are like prepping for a flight campaign with a full stack. And I mean, I was already impressed by the changes between the first and second flight. So I wonder, like, how they surprise us with the third flight. Well, let's see that again. Also, somebody left the lights on the production side. I mean, there's nobody here right now. Why didn't they turn off the lights?
I don't know. They've left those. They've left the bay lights on almost nonstop for ever since they installed those really bright LEDs that make it look like when you look into the mega bay, it's going into a portal to another dimension or something like that.
There's the OLM vent again, by the way.
Yeah.
Get that cloud emitting from there. Interesting stuff here for sure going on.
My
Some
guess is they're in a hold, basically, kind of just looking at data and everything, and then they'll do and then they'll go ahead and do the deluge and stuff test. That'd be my guess. Is they're just kind of looking at stuff right now.
What's the hold point again? 40 seconds, right, for Starship based on the first and second flight? Like they can hold at 40.
Yeah, and they can hold it for like I think it's like 15 minutes or something along those lines.
Yeah,
15 minutes.
Yeah, 15 minutes.
At least that's what John Ives said, I believe, on Flight 2. It's very possible that if they're loading the propellant substantially quicker, that they would possibly expand that hold envelope.
Which is, it's interesting that Starship has this envelope, while, for example, Falcon has not, right? It's an interesting difference between the two.
So
because Falcon doesn't.
Sorry, Adrian.
No, go ahead, Ryan.
If we count that 15 minutes, so the OLM vents was stopped at 8:38 p.m., which would have indicated possible final full load in the booster, and as we know, ship completed before. So if that's the case, then they haven't even reached a 10-minute point in a possible 15-minute hold, and since they loaded it faster, they may have been able to increase that. So I think we're just kind of in a waiting pattern here, waiting to see what they do. But the clouds do seem to be receding, and it looks like the OLM vent shut off again. So yep, OLM vent shut off again here. So
Yeah, it's.
Ooh, yeah,
I
pad's
really-
clearing. Let's see here.
I think really like the staring point for me right now is really the OLM. Like wanted to see if the Fire X turns on, if the Deluge comes on. Like, I mean, there could also be deep press vent, but the good thing about the deep press vent is, that was some
Wait,
Fire
there it
X.
goes.
Fire X.
Here we go.
And see will we get Deluge.
That I think they would have started the Deluge now. So I
They
think
would.
this. So this might. So don't think it might not happen yet. We had it before that they just did this, and then at some point they just did another Deluge because why not? So this could still mean there's a Deluge coming. It might just not be like part of this simulated countdown procedure, but they just do it like while detanking. So the Deluge is still possible here. It's just a matter of, well, they do it right now. But this feels like they have reached very close to their like simulated T0 point here. Because the Fire X would turn on in red like 25 seconds before T0.
Something like that, yeah.
And just to reiterate again, this is not like it ain't over today. Like they still have to detank this whole vehicle, which sounds.
Huh.
Sorry, did I say something wrong here? No, that was that was right below the grid fence, the vents on the booster.
Yeah, those are the 4 vents at the top of the methane tank. So that was some kind of just vent press. And
Yeah, there was a good honk here. They might also test some like thrusters, right? Because they also use these for steering, so they might just use this for like testing the thrusters. I say thrusters with big like notes here, like thrusters. Interesting.
Call that the Starship honk, like the Raptor honk.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. Really interesting stuff going on here right now. All notes for the potential countdown changes and spreadsheets and what's not. Like, really, really interesting stuff here. So I see a drone, I think. Or was that a plane? That might have been plane. I'm seeing lights today, I'm telling you guys.
I did see something going over the left side of the full, like the straight on camera.
Oh, it's a drone. It's a drone.
Okay, that's a drone. It came back. Yeah, it's a drone.
Yeah, a plane doesn't suddenly go up like that. So it looks like SpaceX is inspecting their wet dress rehearsal right now, close up, and looking what they can see here. Which is usual. Like, don't get like this is not like something. Oh, they're looking at something broken. No, they can just. Sometimes they use this for filming ops. Sometimes they just want to observe. It's no bad news. It's no bad news at all. So we will see what's happening here. The drone is certainly flying around here. And they're looking what they can see here. So, Trevor, Do you think everything, like, I'm giving you another opportunity to jinx here, like everything on track so far? Is this so far a successful wet dress rehearsal?
I mean, it's impossible to know from the outside. There are so many things that could make the WDR look good to us, but they may not be happy with, like fuel temperatures, some slight pressures being off, all of that stuff we have no idea about. But from the outside, I think the fact that they seemed, like Ryan was saying earlier, to get to a hold point, work something, and then continue progressing through the WDR up until their simulated T0 of when at some point during the FireX. That all seems to be very good indications to me. And then also the fact that we had no immediate depress, no immediate any weird events like that, good signs. So now we'll just have to pay attention to them offload propellant, and that should give us further indication. And then hopefully either SpaceX or Elon in the coming days tweet something about whether this was a successful test or not, as they start to publicize more information ahead of Flight 3.
I have to thank somebody here. RC Horseman with a $100 tip saying to help the crew get more camera equipment since not everyone can get to see this in person. Thank you so much, NSF crew. And yes, thank you so much, RC Horseman. This is exactly what we like to do, and like get more cool things. And you might have noticed like some new camera angles we were able to write today. So it's really like honestly, your support like this that just enables us to do 2 coverages at the same time of cool events in spaceflight. So thank you so much, RC Osman. We'll make sure to put it to good use here and like give it our best to give you even cooler views. So thank you. Next thing we are of course observing here, if we see signs of detanking, if we like observe anything that looks like, oh, there's like the frost line receding, like that's usually the good third stuff we see. So there's some stuff going on at the recondenser area on the tank farm, I
think that's the Pope vent going.
Oh yeah, true. That's the recondenser is more to the left, right? Like it's on the. Oh, that's. Thanks, Vent, for once again covering any visual cue.
That's just. I gotta love it.
I don't like the wind direction of today. Can we like get the other wind direction of today?
Well, then it blocks our other camera, the camera on the other side of the lock subcoolers. We can't win.
Yeah, no wind. How about no wind?
Yeah, no wind at all. Just straight up, right?
I'm not sure. That would probably block everything, right?
Might, yeah.
Look at that camera, by the way. That looks so cool. Love the view of the ship here. Also, you can see the Raptor vacuum in the hot staging ring there. There's one of these Raptors that you can just barely see, but you can see it. It's a really, really interesting view here.
Yeah. The lights are on inside the engine bay there. Huh?
Look at that.
Seems like they're just holding right now, just kind of gathering that data with the tanks full and whatnot. So
this is a shot by a cam from deployed by Sean, and I think it's a really cool wide shot. Like I really love this, like this view of the full stack here being frozen. Honestly, like yes, we are a bit annoyed about some of the vents like blocking some cues, but it also makes it very cinematic. Like
yeah, it does.
It's a good and bad thing at the same time. So we'll of course, but I agree. It seems like they're holding. They're like just balancing it at a certain pressure, maybe looking at data before they really like start into the saving and detanking operations. When do you think the license will come out, and do you think a launch late this week is possible? Trevor?
Late this week, absolutely not. SpaceX will not be ready. The FAA will not be ready. That's just way too soon. I think the earliest net date that I see would probably be. I want to emphasize the no earlier than like around Monday the 11th or about a week from now. But I think more likely than that is 2 to 3 weeks out, so the week of the 18th or the week of the 25th. As to when I think the launch license will come out, I suspect that we're very close. I think the FAA will want to review some of the data from today's test with SpaceX, work on a final few things, and then drop. My guess would be some point next week.
Yeah, I think I could see like a launch license dropping like somewhere in the range of next week, like somewhere in the like I don't know 13 to 17 area, somewhere in there. Just and then SpaceX prepping for a Monday launch, like 18th earliest. I think if I had to bet right now, I would bet on the 18th. That's like for the first attempt, of course, because they could always like. But I think that's my. That's how I feel right now. That's probably the week I would go for. 25th feels a bit like the week of the 25th almost feels at this point a bit too slow. But to be fair, there's another data point we can look at here, because from the we could for example look at the wet dress rehearsal of the Flight 2 stack, right? And look how long it took from the conclusion of the wet dress rehearsal of the Flight 2 stack to flight. And that was October 24th. That was the wet dress rehearsal for Flight 2. And on November 18, they flew. So that's 24 days between wet dress rehearsal and flight. Which would mean, well, today's the 4th, so 28th of March. And maybe they can remove some days from that. They probably can. And then we are like somewhere in the 18th to 25 range. So that's just some general thinking here, right? That's not like, don't take this for granted. Don't book a flight after this. Please don't book a flight after this. Please don't.
I'm thinking week of the 18th is my guess. Give him 2 weeks. Well, give him at least 2 full weeks to kind of look over this data. The launch license. I would say launch license maybe week of the 11th after going over everything, making sure any mitigations that they still needed to complete are done. Whatever final preps they need to do to the launch pad and launch site are good to go. 2.5 weeks is what I would say until we get a launch. Something like that.
That's an interesting one here, Trevor. Could SpaceX not want to use the Deluge system due to their limit of how many times they can use it in a year?
Yeah, I think that's very possible that if they don't see a reason to test it on today's test, they didn't. And I feel like at this point we can probably confidently say that there isn't going to be one. I think it would have happened by now. And that could be for several reasons, like maybe they just don't want to have to refill the tanks, maybe they are just happy with it, don't want to use that use. So definitely something to keep in mind, since is not a ton of times they're allowed to use it per year.
That's true. And like you probably at some point get to the point where like, do you have to test it? Like what's there to test, right? At some point you'll probably have some sort of confidence in the Deluge system or in the flame protector system. And at that point you're like, we try to reduce the amount of times you use it because, well, it's limited because of the environmental impact of the system, because you release a bunch of water into a wildlife. So that's why there's a limit on the system right now. That's probably the thinking they have here right now. What's the dry weight of this pair? So do we know actually good weight figures here on what's happening here with the vehicles, or is it unknown right now?
Well, we kind of think that ship is, I think their target weight for ship was like 120 tons, but I think ship is probably a little bit more around like the 140 range, maybe 160. I mean, we don't really know the exact dry weight, but I'd say somewhere around 140, 160, give or take. And then booster is a little bit easier to tell because we have seen them pick up a engineless booster with a single bridge crane. Now, in the Mega Bay. Now, those bridge cranes are rated for 180 tons. So that would mean that booster is somewhere between probably 170, 180. And then you go ahead and add 33 Raptors to it, plus the shielding, you're adding like 50, 60 tons. And then, of course, the hot stage ring is like 9. So, you know, you're looking at what? 100 and probably 140? Not 240, 240, 250 or somewhere along those lines for boosters. So that's probably around the dry weight for both. So ballpark.
Yep. Got it. Would be cool to get some like really updated numbers from SpaceX there, because like it would be interesting to see what amount of weight saving they are able to do from prototype to prototype, because that's certainly a thing that's also happening, like optimizing the system for more payload and everything. But it's not a thing that is easily to measure or like to see from the outside, because we cannot look into the tanks, and there are certain things we just don't have access to. Trevor, Jay French here asking, when do you think we will see activity on the tower at 39A? And when do we expect the crew variant and arm to be installed? So, yeah, what's the Starship status at the Cape?
Unfortunately, not a whole lot's been going on. Right? We saw SpaceX very rapidly build the Starship Tower, and then they just kind of stopped doing a lot of work. And right, we know that, I believe it's at Hangar M, they were working on the launch ring, and we haven't heard anything about that, and we haven't seen that be rolled out. So we're not sure what's going on. I would expect that sooner than later, SpaceX will want to start making more progress on their launch site at the Cape. But also, it's very possible that for the short time, SpaceX is more focused on building the second launch pad in Boca Chica. Right, we've seen they shipped all of the tower segments from the Cape to Starbase, and then, hopefully in the next little bit, we'll start seeing more work being done on the second orbital launch pad at Starbase.
Yeah, it feels like right now it's really more about getting the system ready, right? And also you have this whole situation of like, imagine you find something out in Boca that you then want to implement at the Cape. Now you have two systems you already built you need to modify.
That was always what seemed odd to me. Like, I know they wanted to get another pad up and running fast, but they started the OLM legs, they started the tower, and they started all that before they had even done a first launch attempt, which is like, it's just kind of like, well, why would you do that? Because if you run into issues like all of a sudden, this pad needs a major redesign, now you're stuck because you already started it and you have to demolish what you have. It always seemed odd to me that they started that early and didn't wait till they had at least one launch under their belt before they tried. So,
absolutely. Interesting note here. I think we see signs of detanking. Look, it's hard to see, but look. There's some.
Yep,
yeah.
We do. We got a little bit of detanking here on the LOX tank.
Yeah, you can see also like there's some melting, and you can also see that the ice layer there, even where it is still on the left side, is thinner already, right? Mm-hmm. You can see it has like a bit of discoloration, and that usually means that the LOX is no longer there, and it's just like the ice, because the ice kind of has a delay here while it detanks. So that's why it takes a bit of time to see that. Can we, while we are on this camp, Jake, maybe go up to the methane tank as well? And have a look at maybe like the methane tank if we see some detanking there as well. Try kind of to like I know I'm putting you on the spot here, but maybe it's possible. So, and there we go. Let's see if we spot some detanking signs on the methane tank. Hard to spot there, actually. I mean, on the right side maybe a bit, but it also could just come down to like humidity and wind and everything.
Yeah.
What do you think, Ryan?
I think they're slowly starting to do it. I think they're just slowly starting to do it here, and we may not see any obvious stuff there. But I will say this: looking up the weather conditions down there at Port Isabel and Boca, they had a 97% humidity. So these tanks are cold. So all that moisture in the air is going to freeze down those tanks. So they could definitely be detanking. It's just the frost really isn't going anywhere very easily because there's a lot of moisture in the air. So that's definitely a possibility.
Yep. There might also be a process where they just like sometimes we see them moving both tanks kind of through steps, where first one tank gets a bit lower than the other. Like they are kind of going through steps here. It's not a system where they just open all valves and just let it run out. It's a very delicate process here where they really have to be careful to not damage anything or like do depressure everything too fast and damage the ship or the infrastructure there. It's moving 5,000 tons of propellant it's always dangerous and always like you have to go slowly and really careful. Any idea what additional slosh baffles would amount to decreased fuel and oxidizer? Trevor, we've talked about like the potential add for slosh baffles and everything. Would that mean technically it's a performance loss because less LOX?
Very, very little. Like the volume of the slosh baffles is going to be minimal. If I was to guess, the more substantial fact would be the slight increase in mass, but that's also going to be quite low. And it's very much worth it if it allows you to recover your vehicle.
Absolutely. I mean, it's kind of like it's pointless to have extra performance if your vehicle doesn't reach orbit, isn't able to return. Like that's missing primary mission goals versus being able to launch a bit more.
All right. So after looking at all my times and everything, it looks like they were able to load. So they loaded ship. Basically, they loaded the entirety of the vehicle at about 46 to 47 minutes. From when the vent shut off to when the vents turned on again, indicating end of prop load. So they did it in under 50. So faster than Falcon Heavy. Like,
That's bonkers.
That's what I call impressive.
to say the least.
loading the biggest rocket of all time that fast. That's like I didn't expect that. If you would have asked me, I wouldn't expect that.
With subcooled propellants too. This isn't like, oh, they're taking it straight from the tanks and just pumping it in. No, they're subcooling it and putting it in. Like, that's insane. Like, I don't know how else to say it. That's gonna be wow. All right, now I guess is the question here. So basically, chill down of the tank farm was 2 hours. Which is about normal, is what they've always had. It's around 2 hours to chill everything down. That's kind of a matter of thermodynamics. You can't really change that. And then, what was it? The OLM vent started literally 2 hours before. And then the OLM vent went off to indicate booster loading about 52 minutes after it went on. So between start of cooldown of the tank farm and load was 3.5, 4 hours? Not even? Like, I mean, let's see if I can get the exact time here. So, see here. Pope vent started at 5 o'clock exactly, and they finished loading at 8:38. So yeah, you're talking 3.6 hours or 218 minutes from start of Pope vent to finish of prop load. Oof. Man, that's
fast.
I wonder how that's going to change like their count. Like, will they still close the road at like midnight for like the launches? Are they going to still do that same thing? Are they going to be, you know, are they going to change that because now they can chill down and load much faster now, and they're more confident in the system? Do you think they'll close the pad like closer to launch or not?
That's an interesting question. If they maybe go a bit slower, I want to quickly shout out the fact that this is not the only stream that NSF is right now doing. We are also with the Cape team right now live with crew coverage of about 35 minutes from now. We will have the liftoff of Crew 8. So if you want to have a really, really interesting Falcon 9 launch later today in 35 minutes, there's another stream for that. There's a whole nother NSF team right now live since over 3 hours also covering that. So just making sure you know that. So you know that you can also enjoy a Falcon 9 lifting off to the International Space Station, hopefully 33 minutes from now. It looked like they looked at some issues from a hatch there, but they decided that it's all go for now, and they are now into propellant loading of a Falcon 9. So there you go. SpaceX right now is basically having 2 vehicles with propellant in them at the same time. How's that?
Yeah,
that's cool.
I mean, it's kind of like you think about it. So yeah, they're testing this large rocket, but they're also getting ready to launch Crew. Like this is Crew. This is a Crew launch, not like a Starlink launch. This is Crew. So for a company to be able to pull that off, to have the resources, the manpower, and the know-how to do that, SpaceX continually surprises us, to say the least.
Absolutely. And again, like, this is a wet dress rehearsal of an experimental rocket. The other one, of course, is a launch of 4 people to the International Space Station, which is a whole like even bigger thing. So I'm looking forward to that, seeing that in about 30 minutes from now. Make sure to tune into that. If you have a second screen, you for sure have that on.
I got it up on my second screen.
Yep, same.
I can't
believe
like. I just have to say it again, because this doesn't only highlight how incredible SpaceX is, but our team being able to handle both of these things, like the people who work hard behind the scenes to make sure our infrastructure is good enough for this do not get enough shout outs. So all the developers and whatnot are really what enables us to do this.
Yep, for sure. It's a team effort, loads of hands involved that make sure all of this can happen. So thank you all so much. So Starship still in detanking, it looks like. It's hard to see really on the ship, but I think I might see some detanking on the LOX tank there.
Yeah, it's
I think
kind of hard to
that's
tell
happening.
with. I think a lot of the moisture in the air is making it kind of hard to tell how much they're actually detanking.
But there you can see it, I think. You can see that how the frost is like less forceful.
Thinner, yeah.
So yeah, really, like it's certainly a thing where you can see that all detanking there. So let's hope everything progresses as normal. Again, this is really them. They're still very much in work mode. They're still making sure everything goes right here, because you don't want to lose your vehicle now. That would be so unfortunate. And we had that before. We had prototypes that had issues and were like wrongly detanked, and that didn't went well for them. So
Yeah, if that was methane, it would be igniting in the flare stack, right?
Oh God. There's
Good old-
there's a whole compilation basically of early Starship prototypes here that you can talk about.
It's just that one is particularly amazing because I don't think Jack could have timed asking that better if he tried. And Jack just texted me. He just said Trevor.
Honestly, best timing ever performed on this channel by Mr. Jack Byer. It's impossible to tame it better.
Jack really has some of the greatest moments here. Like he really does. Like the water towers, it's just some of the best moments. Oh, we always love Jack.
Yep, 100%. Also, biggest jinx for certainly on this channel forever. We can now see clear signs of detanking also on the methane tank. As you can see, the frost line receding. So both tanks are now on super heavy, being detanked, and they're progressing here. They're progressing well. Let's see if I can grab a bit more questions here. Any reason they didn't wait until tomorrow? Like, since they have limited weekend closures and are also launching crew tonight, seems like they have some incentive to get this done as soon as possible. So, why the hurry with this? Why on a Sunday evening?
I think it's just to kind of get it done and get it out of the way. I mean, they had the opportunity to do it on a Sunday night. I guess they got the sheriffs available to be able to close the road. They got the county approval to do it, so why not do it? It's one of those things of, I probably would have preferred it during the day simply because it's easier to see stuff, but I am definitely not going to complain about these really, really cool, like, spotlight views, seeing a fully fueled Starship stack during the night, which I cannot wait to see this more often, and then, of course, see it launch at night. So, I mean, they just wanted to get it done, and I mean, it's cool. So I'm not gonna complain about it.
You have no idea how badly I want to see like Jack and everyone's shots of Starship launching at night.
Oh,
that like beautiful purple methane trail captured by the amazing photographers. Oh,
Yeah, imagine that coming out of the Cape with all the different angles. Like here it's at like Starbase, you'll get it from South Padre Island. Sometimes you'll get some shots from the Mexican side of the border, and you'll get shots from our team from like right by coming directly west. But imagine a Starship launch at night at the Cape. The amount of different views from all the beaches, from places like even depending on the inclination they launch to, like Miami, of a rocket of that size, like even way down there. I mean, just imagine the views seen from a launch from the Cape for this thing would be just insane.
yeah, it reminds me of the Terran 1 launch at night, and that I think has to be still one of the most gorgeous launches we've seen. So that, except for so much larger, I love the future.
I love the future is, I think, a very accurate statement while watching the biggest rocket of all time being frosty right now in front of our eyes. I think very accurate statement that I want to subscribe to. I am subscribing to your newsletter here.
Yep, same here. Trevor's newsletter.
Yep, 100%.
It's mostly math and Taylor Swift, but a little bit of rockets.
I mean, we are all aware. I can tell you, everybody is aware what it's mostly about. So let's see if we have some more questions here that I can throw at you too. So let's see here. Could it be that they are doing the wet dress rehearsal at night because they are preparing for a nighttime launch? I will start to throw this to you, Ryan, and you can give your thoughts here.
I mean, I don't think Flight 3 will be a nighttime launch. I think they'll do it the same as the others. But, I mean, preparing for a nighttime launch, I don't really know what any difference it would be from a daytime launch, to be honest, from just a launching perspective. I mean, the time of day you launch is more dependent on what orbit you're going to than anything else. Because, you know, if you got to go to the ISS, you only have certain opportunities to actually launch to it, which is one reason why like Crew 8's going now, is because that's the only chance that they can. There are there can be openings during the day, but right now they're going at night. So it's more of where you want to put your vehicle in orbit rather than anything other than that. So.
Yep. It's but Trevor, any additional thoughts?
Yeah, unfortunately, despite all of the hyping up I just did of a night launch, this will be almost certainly another early morning launch. SpaceX wants to be able to capture launch and landing and re-entry in the daylight, so it just works out easier to have it in the morning. Plus, then weather is nicer, and you get more viewers, and it's just kind of a better time for them right now.
Yeah, I really would like if we get a bit of later in the evening than just, I don't know, very early in the morning every time. But that's how it is right now. That's how it is, and we have to deal with it. Trevor, what's next for this ship right now? I mean, we talked about this before, but like for new people maybe who've joined recently, what's the flight plan kind of here until flight, I should say?
Yeah, so obviously today we expect to see a full detank, which is in process, as you can see on screen. Once they're fully detanked, if the test was successful, I would imagine that SpaceX will destack these vehicles fairly quickly, so that they can start doing any work that needs to be done ahead of launch. So that will include eventually installation of FTS, but that will wait until they're a bit closer to launch. And then that's hopefully about it. We're not expecting any major work that needs to be done. So then I suspect SpaceX would start moving over to the testing of Ship 29, which you can see on screen on your left. However, if today SpaceX saw a little bit of data that they're not the happiest with, then I would say it's likely that in the coming days we'll see a repeat of the Wet Dress Rehearsal. So we'll just have to wait and see what SpaceX says.
Yep. And usually after Wet Dress Rehearsal, I think in the last time they tweeted, right? Like we usually saw at least hey, Starship completed its Wet Dress Rehearsal, preparation for flight. I think if I recall correctly, usually they confirmed these bigger milestones. So, I think there's at least a decent hope here that they will do that again. Yeah, go ahead, Ryan.
Well, I mean, they've got the two closes the next 2 days. Tomorrow, I mean, of course, tomorrow there's not enough time to get Ship 29 ready to do any testing on. They have to unhook it, get everything out of the way, untie the flaps and everything. But I would not be surprised if they did a spin primer static fire on Tuesday with Ship 29. If they push straight ahead towards that, I wouldn't be surprised at all. So we'll have to wait and see if they revoke the closures or they keep them on. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think, actually good point. Ship 29 is just sitting there, be like, oh, it's my turn now. So we might see a very quick turnaround or a very quick move into testing here with Ship 29, which I guess they want to test before moving it back for the flight, basically to get it out of the area before flight, because they won't leave it there during the flight, right?
No, they're not going to leave Ship 29 out there for the flight. That'd be a little bit dangerous to have your next vehicle still next to a really experimental launch vehicle still. So they'll roll it back, probably put it back in the Mega Bay or or whatnot, and then they'll roll it back out once the flight's ready. Now, the really interesting thing for Flight 3 will be how quickly does Booster 11 roll out? Because Booster 11, based off of the picture that SpaceX had tweeted, posted, whatever you want to call it, several weeks ago, where it showed the 3 boosters in the bay plus Booster 13 in 2 pieces, which has since been stacked. And they've since started even on Booster 14, so they're going ahead with vehicle production. It looked like 11 had its engines because it had a lot of the outer engine shielding, and that's only installed once they're done installing the engines. So it'll be kind of interesting to see how quickly that thing rolls out to the pad.
Let's see here if we have a bit more to ask y'all here while we are still waiting here for them to perform this detanking. Trevor, does the frost on this vehicle, which is quite a loss, add any like significant amount of weight to the vehicle?
It's certainly. This is actually a question that I've wanted an answer to for a while. Like, what is the total mass of frost on average on Falcon, Starship, and any vehicle that uses these cooler propellants? And I think the answer is yes. It's a decent amount, but it's not going to be that much on the scale of the rocket. So it's not going to be that big of a performance hit in the slightest.
Yeah, but I think it's like it's a very significant insignificant amount of frost versus all the other things that this vehicle is consisting of, and it's also melting quite quickly, probably. It's also a very thin layer of ice just on the outside. So yeah. How likely is it, Ryan, that SpaceX will reach their target of 9 Starship launches in 2024?
Zero. They will not reach that many. Just to say right now, so they have Ship 28 and Booster 10 here as they're completing their wet dress, hopefully launching within the next 2 to 3 weeks. After that, they have Booster 11 and Ship 29, which have their engines. As you obviously, Ship 29's out on the pad, probably going to get its static fire before this flight even goes. And then after that, you have Flight 5, which is Ship 30 and B12. Those have completed their cryo testing and are getting prepped with engines and pre-static fire and pre-flight work. And then after that, SpaceX doesn't have any vehicles that have completed cryos. The next set after that is Ship 31 and Booster 13. Now, Ship 31 could be close to a cryo. And then Booster 13 was only finished stacking on February 3rd, and it usually takes a couple of months to hook up all the raceway, all the pressurization hoses, all the lines that go up and pressurize the tanks, get all the plumbing together, weld everything together, hook up all the avionics. Takes a while to do all that kind of stuff before it's ready for cryo. So then that, I would probably assume that puts us at like October or something like that. Let's say that puts us at October, or looking on the bright side, August, on the really big bright side. But after that, Ship 32 is sitting out at the Rocket Garden, which is Flight 6 here. Ship 32 is sitting out at the Rocket Garden. Its raceway isn't even complete. It hasn't really advanced a lot. It's been sitting in the Rocket Garden for a while now. And then you have Booster 14, which its LOX tank isn't even fully finished yet. It's still waiting on its thrust section. So that would be Flight 7, total Flight 7 for Starship, or Flight 5 of this year if they could get it ready. Now, if they get it ready, they might be able to have that pair ready to go by the end of the year. But at this rate, not. It isn't. It's possible, but it's a maybe. they won't get to 9. My guess is the 9 request was to try to cover it for next year. So with possibly V2 coming up and having 2 megabays going, then and the full Star Factory being done at some point this year, they'll be able to crank vehicles out, and then with Massey's getting up and running, they'll be able to cryo and static fire pretty quickly, getting it all up and running. Then they'll probably be able to get that many launches in a year, but definitely not this year.
I think the big question will be, when do they start reusing and recovering boosters? Because it just takes them so long to build these boosters that being able to reuse them, even if they need a substantial amount of refurbishment, will save them a lot of time.
Hello, everybody.
Is that Chris B?
It is, yes. I'm just covering Adrian for a bit. Very good WDR, isn't it? I can't even say it, but it was very good. Did we see a water deluge test? I don't think we did we?
Nope, just FireX.
Okay, that might still happen, and if we are on the end of this live stream, we'll have Starbase live, so you won't miss it, and I will clip it on my black belt level of Bandicam and make sure you all get it on X. But yeah, it's gone very smoothly. I've been watching this and the other stream at the same time, and it's been going very smoothly. It's a big comparison to what we saw with the first 2 attempts, where they started but then stopped and then vented and the road opened. This time it's gone through quite smoothly. Ryan, I remember you saying earlier that it seemed to be going quite fast, the prop loader. Maybe they've improved that process?
Oh yeah, they improved it by a lot. So the original prop load time for the last 2 flights was about 97 minutes from to do the full prop load. They have gotten that down to 46. So
nice.
They have significantly increased their capability prop load, and yeah, so that's a really good sign. Now I just want to point this out here. So we can see a lot of signs of booster detanking now, based off of the wind direction. It looks like the wind is blowing off the frost from just that one part. I think these tanks are mostly detanked. The reason why we don't see a lot of frost off ship is because it's shielded from the wind is one possibility. And as I had said earlier, it is incredibly humid out there right now. It's like 97% humidity. So all that moisture is getting frozen on the tanks, and even with the cryo fluids out of the tanks, the tanks are still really cold. So there's a chance that ship is mostly detanked. We just can't see it because the frost is still frozen and it's not getting like blown off or melted yet. So we'll have to pay attention and see when all of a sudden some of the frost on the tank starts disappearing.
Another question I saw in chat earlier, it wasn't directed at us, so it wouldn't go on the panel, but I think it's an interesting question, is that this wet dress rehearsal timeline, does that potentially point to actual launch day being a night launch, or is it just a coincidence that there happens to be testing at this time of night for a wet dress rehearsal?
We just talked about that before you got on.
Ah, well, there we go then. The good thing is that it's actually quite impressive views. I was quite concerned that with SpaceX's bright spotlights, which they are, bright spotlights, and the amount of venting, that your views are probably diminished compared to a daytime situation, but I've actually really enjoyed this nighttime view. It does look impressive. It's a sign of the future, because this is the world's largest, I say it with Raptor side, don't I? It's the world's largest, most powerful rocket ever, and it looks it. I mean, when you look at daytime, probably because you're looking at it too long, you tend to lose the gravity of the scale of the thing. But right now, I'm seeing it again. I'm seeing how large this vehicle is again, with the night views and the spotlights and the shiny and the flashlights and everything. It looks very impressive.
Yeah, it looks so cool at night here. With all the spotlights and everything, it just looks so cool.
As you may have assumed, I'm not actually reading questions. I'm just making complete statements because I popped on for a bit. Yeah, but yeah. I mean, I'll remind people, thanks again for your support. I always, every single stream, I see the green bars at the top of the chat, which denotes who did the 50 gifted members. Let's have a look. It looks like Jawar. Yep, Jawar with 50 gifted memberships. We've had so many people who may be massive fans of our channel but just don't have disposable income, which is most people, to go buying memberships on YouTube channels. Let's face it, it's not like putting food on the table, is it? It's the priority list is lower, and yet we've got such amazing already members of our community who then, even though they've done their part, go and help other people in that situation where they may be big fans but they can't afford to buy a membership, get a free membership. It's one of the few things YouTube's done right over the recent years, and wow, has our community taken to it. And it's extremely grateful, because all these camera reviews I was just talking about, these great views, are thanks to the support of our community, allowing us to go and buy those things. I mean, that's how it works. You don't go to the bank and say, can I have a loan, and then hope for the best that it works out in the long run. You have to build on basically what you've got finances wise, and that's where the support comes in. Okay, I'm rambling again. Somebody stop me.
Oh, should I stop you?
Yeah, I'm just going to rabbit hole. I'm just thanking people and just basically completely ignoring the test that we should be watching and talking about. But there we go. Adrian's back. I need to go back and do some more bandicamming.
Then I will. I think another person I should thank you is Sean, because we got something from Sean here. I wanna present everybody here. In the store, a new metal print of today's test, of up close here, with the ship and booster being very frosty. I like the condensation in front of it. Gives it such a cool artsy vibe here. I really love it. So that's now in shop.nasaspaceflight.com if you're interested in having that on your wall. And there's also much more in this store, including the patch, of course, for Flight 3 and other very amazing metal print. There you can go to. There you see our patch for Flight 3. So if you have not get chance yet to order that, that's all the things we have in store for you to support us as we are gearing up here for Flight 3 of Starship. There you go. I already have this patch now at home here, and I really love it. It's quite. I really love it. Go ahead.
Before I go, I was going to quickly mention that if you do, I mean, that metal print has just literally been turned around within, God knows, only minutes probably. And that is off tonight, by the way, that, as you may have guessed, but that is from tonight. But also, when you buy a metal print, it not only helps us, because obviously that's the way commerce works in stores, as you may have guessed, it also helps yourself because you get something amazingly cool on your wall. But it also helps the photographer who took it, because they get a cut of everything that's sold. So that's the way it works with metal prints. If you want to get something that helps three ways, that's the way to go at metal prints. Thank you. I'm going to go now. Bye.
Bye. Thank you, Chris. So let's see where we are.
We can talk about how bad the shuttle was now.
Oh, no. Uh-oh.
Just kidding. I love the shuttle. Don't fire me.
Uh-oh. That was dangerous territory. Dangerous territory. What test flight number do you think they will test the pest dispenser? That's an interesting question, because I think we first have to define what's testing. Like, what are we calling or defining testing of the pest dispenser? Is it like deploying something, or just running it kind of dry without a payload? Like, what? I would say, I will modify this and say, what flight will they first deploy something from the pest dispenser? Trevor, go.
Flight 5, I think. I think this one and the next one, obviously it's not going to be on this flight. Then I would see Flight 4 probably just kind of refining a little bit of what they did on Flight 3, trying to get closer to re-entry, trying to get more further through re-entry, maybe doing another propellant demonstration, something like that. And then Flight 5, it seems a little optimistic, but I could see them trying to deploy some Starlink satellites.
Any different thoughts here?
I mean, I could see them putting a dummy one on like 29, but yeah, we'll have to see. Maybe Flight 5 or something. Or they'll wait till V2. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, it's a tough call to make from the outside, of course. we never know if SpaceX at some point maybe just surprises us with a Starlink-sized cheese wheel deploying from that, which would be quite interesting. Probably be a big amount of cheese. So, yeah, I think it's probably at least like 2 or 3 more flights down the line. That's my initial impression here. Yeah, let's quickly do this. Ryan, what's the 12-hour closures on Monday and Tuesday for?
Well, probably what they were is for backups in case they couldn't get the wet dress rehearsal done today. They could also be for Ship 29 testing. So it'll be interesting. SpaceX may just revoke those right away, and they may not. They may be revoked by the end of the day today, or even by tomorrow. My guess is they don't use the one tomorrow because we're already less than 12 hours from that other closure, and I mean, Ship 29 is still hooked up and everything, and tied off and whatnot. But then they could try for something on Tuesday. We don't really know. We'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, so of course, if something happens, we will be here. We will make sure that we'll cover it. And with this, I want to start a very quick throw here because we want to make sure that you all get to watch the launch of Crew here because, yeah, it's happening in 5 minutes. So we decided, let's push you all there. So I'm quickly thanking Trevor. Thank you for being on here.
No, thank you for everyone for joining, and let's go watch the significantly more important event that's happening today, launching 4 people into orbit.
And also, Ryan, quick thank you here.
Thanks, Adrian. Yeah, fun as always to do Starship streams. Yeah, let's go watch Crew 8 launch the ISS.
And I'm Adrian, and behind the scenes was Jay. And that's it. That's all. Thank you all for being here. And I want to just don't interrupt anymore. Let's go watch some Crew launch.
And here we go. We have liftoff.
Propulsion continues to be nominal.
R68 chamber pressure looks good.
Doubling up. Roger, with planet.
Water towers, fly! Yes! Tango down to nominal.
Flight downside SPD off. Bring in SPD off. It's orange! Orange 45! Oh my god! Oh my god! Decolage! Put that in the big bag, Jingle.
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed. We rise together, back to the moon and beyond.
This methane will be igniting in the flare, correct?
Yikes. You dead? Sure. We don't need any more of these.